poultry meal. Stop. For many of us, it is hard to resist the temptation, especially when it comes to enjoying a juicy beef dish. But have you ever stopped to think about the impact of your food choices on the greater good? Our food choices have a great impact on others. The beef industry is one of the leading contributors to deforestation. As trees are cleared to make way for cattle ranching, it not only disrupts the delicate balance of ecosystems, but also contributes to climate change. We can make a difference with our choices. It does not mean we all have to become vegans overnight. Imagine enjoying fish and poultry a few times a week, indulging in beef just once a month, and filling our plates with plenty of plant-based goodness. Every little bit counts, and even small reductions in our intake can make a huge impact on the climate. By making smarter food choices, we're not only taking care of ourselves, but also the planet we call home. Remember, the choices we make today lead to a better tomorrow.
We move now to other parts of Africa. Chadian Prime Minister Success Masra said Wednesday that he has handed his resignation just over 2 weeks after his defeat to junta chief Mahamat Idris Deby Itno in presidential elections. The move, he added, was also in accordance with the constitution. Deby, who is 40, was proclaimed transitional president in April 2021 by a junta of 15 generals after his father, iron-fisted President Idris Deby Itno, had been shot dead by rebels after 30 years in power. He won the May 6 presidential vote with 61% of the ballot, according to final results. Masra, also aged 40 and once a fierce Deby opponent before becoming prime minister 4 months ago, won 18.5% of the vote but contested the results. He claimed victory in the ballot, which his party called a masquerade and which international rights groups had said would be neither credible nor fair. Outside Africa, a funeral prayer was held on Wednesday in Tehran for Iranian President Ibrahim Raisi, Foreign Minister Hossein Amir Abdullahian, and other officials who died on Sunday in a helicopter crash. Iran's Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei led a funeral prayer at Tehran University, attracting thousands of attendees who eagerly awaited entry into the limited prayer area. Following the prayer, hundreds of thousands of people gathered in Revolution Square, Engelab Square, and surrounding roads to attend the funeral ceremony in Azadi Square. Officials directed the public from Azadi Street to Azadi Square for the ceremony due to the growing crowd. After the ceremony, Raisi's body will be taken to the city of Mashhad, while Amir Abdullahian's body will be buried in Tehran. The burial procedures will take place after the ceremony is scheduled for Thursday. On May 19, a helicopter carrying Iran's president and foreign minister crashed in the Iranian province of East Azerbaijan. The head of the Iranian Red Crescent Society, Per Hussein Kolivand, announced on Monday that all the passengers and crew of the helicopter had died in the crash. And as the news update, for more stories, please follow us on Facebook, X, and Instagram. And do subscribe to our YouTube channel at Plus TV Africa and Plus TV Africa Lifestyle. You can also view us from Limex on limex.tv and Glow TV apps anywhere in the world. My name is Nyamgul Agaji. Thank you for being there.
I will take you through this amazingness today.
Welcome to Plus Trending. I am Bukky November, your host, saying thank you for joining us on today's episode.
Welcome back. It's tea time on Plus TV Africa.
Practice makes perfect. I'm not perfect yet, but I'm a lot better than I used to be.
He's a king. He's entitled to marry 100 if he wants to.
Dramatic shawarma, yeah.
Lagos Island has imposing architectural structures dotted on each side of the road, filled with people who are not sure if they will be locked out from their homes next year due to rental fee hikes. The buildings on the other side of the road wear an empty, forlorn look. Beggars are always on the streets. A thin, middle-aged man in an oversized jacket comes towards my window. In impeccable English, he explains that he is not a beggar, but a medical doctor who worked in the hospital about 3 blocks from the right side of the street we were on. He has an accent that must be from Cross River State, unmistakably lyrical. He says his daughter is in terrible shape. She has a ruptured appendix and was admitted in the same hospital where he worked. I'm trying to raise money for my daughter, but we haven't been paid for about 6 months now. It was difficult to tell truth from falsehood in Lagos. Poverty taught most people the art of deceit as a means of livelihood. Today, I discover an even more ingenious way of begging meant to jolt one's physical and spiritual sensibilities. At the junction just before the traffic lights, a man who looks like he was a few seconds away from being called to be with the Lord is being pushed around in a wheelchair by a dreary-looking assistant. After a few minutes, the assistant stops pushing the wheelchair and takes up his bullhorn to tell the story of how the man has an orange-sized tumor on his face. He makes a feverish pitch for funds that will be for treatment. God bless you as you give. God shall water your garden as you donate to this cause, he bellowed. Motorists avoid them as if they just escaped a leper colony. The 2 men are indifferent and remain resolute in their quest. My name is Eriye Onogoroa. I work in an energy company, so apart from being an author, that's what else I do. So to be honest, so I used to work in another company, and you get to that stage in your career where you feel like your life is stuck in a rut. Like you wake up every morning and you're like, okay, we have to do this again. Nothing is challenging. It's just you just know you're built for more. So that's the stage I was in. I'll go to work just completely dissatisfied. And, we had friends, how it is in the office. We'll talk about, all the things happening and not happening to us. And then it was just every day we were complaining. And then one day I said to myself, I said, Eri, but you're right, yeah? Because I started writing from when I was like 8 years. And I said, instead of complaining, look inwards and do something. And literally, that's how Dear Alare was born. So it was at a point in my life where I was just completely yearning for more and dissatisfied with where I was in my career. I like that question because when I was writing, for me, it was almost like a sense of urgency to pass a message, and the message was principally to live your life, your best life, in spite of anything that may be happening around you. You would have challenges, but own your voice, tell your story, and just be authentic. So for me, it was very important to pass that message across and let anybody reading to say, you know what, I mean, these challenges are not uncommon. Everybody faces them. But you can still live your moment. You can still live your best life as you pass through these challenges. For me, when I wrote that in particular, I was looking to talk about life in Lagos. And I use Lagos as a metaphor for Nigeria because, Lagos is where everything happens. So for me, it was important to bring out all the kind of things that we see in society that should not be, poverty that really shouldn't be because of the abundance of resources, and the fact that you see a lot of people who don't have as much just more or less just tending towards, okay, we need to have more babies, almost like a pastime. Like, okay, since I can't have this, I can't have this. So that was the thinking behind, this. In terms of themes, I thought to look at the patriarchal culture in Nigeria. I thought to put an X-ray on life in Lagos and the fact that really and truly, at the end of the day, we sort of exist in Lagos. We don't live, we don't thrive. You wake up every day, you spend roughly, depending on where you are, roughly 4 to 5 hours in traffic. And you get back home and you sleep, and it's like an endless rot. Yeah, so those are the kind of things I was trying to look at, the challenges women face in the office. Not just in the office, what they're going through internally. For Alari didn't have a child, so she was facing all that, and yet she needed to be in the office to be her best. So things like that, those were the kind of things I was looking to talk about: the patriarchal culture, infertility challenges, just the whole chaos, what it really takes to live in a place like Lagos. Because it was important for me to tell the story that the fact that a lady gives birth to a girl has nothing to do with her, and the fact that it's a girl does not lessen the significance of the child. So that's very important for me to say there. We find it, like you said, in Nigeria, and it hasn't changed. Well, maybe, our voices are being more amplified, so people are getting more aware, but it's still there. When a child is born, depending on the sex, the blame game, shifts. And another thing I wanted to point out so strongly was, what if it's the man at fault? Because what tends to happen in marriages is the lady takes the blame, because society has been trained to see the woman to blame where there are challenges with childbearing. But what if it's the man's fault? So those were the kind of questions I was trying to throw light on in the book. Not very well, to be honest, because growing up, it was almost like a taboo. My dad didn't want to hear anybody speaking Pidgin, so it was like, well, I say by force, we had to learn. But, a story like that, I had to use Pidgin to reflect the characters. So someone like Alhaji Wasiu, typical characters that would necessarily speak Pidgin English. It was important for me to reflect that in the story so that the reader understands that, just the different strata in society and the levels of people that we have. I would say, tell your story unapologetically, because somebody also asked me, and I said, but you can't live life just expecting to be validated or not validated. Yeah, so for me it was important to pass a message. For me it was important to tell my story. The validation, secondary, because I will do it the same way, whether or not whatever anybody thought or thinks about Dear Alari, I will tell my story, because it's important at the end of the day. When you go to bed, be satisfied that you have done what truly makes you happy as a writer. And some people just have a lot of stories in there just waiting to come out. But it's that fear of acceptance. And really and truly, you can't live life waiting to be accepted by everybody. It's just not the way to do things. I would say that is changing, to be honest. I mean, a lot of reading clubs springing up rather. A lot of, I will say it's changing. I know that, just even surviving in Nigeria is an art. So you find quite a number of people probably not having the time to read, but I don't think it's fair to say that we don't read. I think things are really, really changing.
Switch to on, light on. Switching command to internal. Expect to leave at DW. Fuel tank pressure 60 on 55. Your nav state with back and is perfect.
From north to south and east to west, life in Nigeria has become dangerously unbearable. The country is faced with what seems to be endless waves of homegrown security threats and violence. Nigerians live in fear, from terrorism to kidnappings, armed banditry, farmer-herder clashes, ethnic violence, and separatist agitation. To better understand the causes of the unrest, as well as the true agitations of the people, Searchlight travels across Nigeria.
The bandits, I use the dark place, the forest place, to hang around. When our drivers reach there, they will come out and start shooting them.
In fact, if I can give an estimate, I can say that in a week we used to treat not less than five gunshots.
Look, people and people living under siege.
Now, Owerri is too hot.
No rest of mind. To see for anybody.
If you sleep now, sleep with one eye closed, one eye open. Be vigilant. This is Igbora for you.
Igbora is one of the 7 communities that make up Ibarapa land.
Ibarapa land comprises of Igongon, Irua, Ayete, Takpa, Idere, Lanlate, and Igbora in Oyo State, Nigeria's southwest region. There is a long-standing history dating back to the early 20th century between settler herders who are mostly of Fulani descent and local farmers in the Ibarapa axis. Recently, however, coexistence has become increasingly problematic as the communities are now plagued with kidnappings, farmer-herder clashes, reprisal attacks leading to the forceful ejection of Sarakins and Fulanis in the area.
I have been back home here in Igbora since January because of the armed herders and farmers crisis that has been rocking nearby villages and farms. Although the Sarakin Fulani of Ngongo, Salihu, was evicted in January on accusations that he was helping evade justice, not much has changed. There are still incidences of kidnappings and attacks on farmlands.
This is Shekere village in Igbora. We live in fear. I do come earlier in the day and could enter the farm. You would find their cattle eating crops, and when confronted, they attack the owners of the farm. If perchance they meet a woman unaccompanied on the farm, she could be raped. There is no safety on farmlands.
The nomadic ones are moving around. The residential ones, we know them. Some of the residential ones are still within the community. They are peaceful. One incident occurred when our people they are outraged and they burnt all the Karas in the whole Ibarapa land, even that of Irua. In Igbora here now, there's no Kara again.
If you had burnt all the Karas in the whole of Ibarapa land, I want to think that Kara is a place for residential Fulani.
No, Kara is a spot, a market for them to come and buy and sell.
So you have burnt.
Do you know? Come,
their economic spots.
Let me tell you some things about that Kara. Some things we discover about that Kara, especially that of Igbora here. That spot is a spot where they do hide their ammunitions. And in the night like this, they will pick up those ammunitions, go out, kidnaps, rob, anything they can do. And when they come back to town the following day.
Kabir, you've done a lot of work out of the Ibarapa land. What did you see? What do you know? Can you share your first-hand experience?
Not just in Igbora, not just in Lanlate, not just in Oyo State, but from my experience across the Southwest states, I realized that most of the killings, the kidnappings being perpetrated are being done by the Bororos, who are mostly referred to as foreigners. Some of these Bororos, they come into the country through Benin Republic, some through Cameroon, and you get to realize that in the essence of it all, some through Niger, that many of them are not the traditional Fulanis. And the reason is this: we've had cases where traditional Fulanis, those who are Nigerians, some of them who came from, who are from Kwara State, also alleged that they have also been kidnapped. They've also been victims of the attacks of these persons. Most times, those that perpetrate this, they don't even have any cattle. All they have is gun, sword, and other weapons.
The violence doesn't end there. Nigeria is faced with the Boko Haram insurgency in the northeast, banditry in the northwest, armed separatist agitations in the southeast, amid communal clashes in the Middle Belt, southwest, and south-south. Increasingly, violence between herders and farming communities is spreading from Nigeria's central belt southward, while kidnappings are rife nationwide. What exactly led to this?
When you see a failure of this scale, of this magnitude, and spread right across the country, the first thing that comes to mind is that somebody somewhere who has responsibilities to secure Nigerians has failed in their duties. There's no other explanation for this. So we have a country that is poorly run, poorly governed, and therefore unable to master the requirements of securing both citizens and the country itself. That is the first one. The second one is that there are a lot of opportunistic criminal activities going on. People understand the weaknesses, they perceive a weakness at the level of the state. They think the state is weak or the state is incapable of protecting citizens from all sorts of attacks, bandits, kidnappers, insurgencies, insurrections, secessionists, irredentists. All these people actually exist because the state has not been able to assert its obligation and responsibilities to protect citizens. And they are emerging and increasing by the day. The third one is the failure of the Nigerian elite to get together and demand that the Nigerian state does what it's supposed to do. The leadership does what they are supposed to do, that is to protect citizens. The voices that are supposed to be heard are not being heard. Too many people are quiet, either out of fear or because they think that they are not likely to make any impact if they don't raise their voices.
Traveling by road is now an extreme sport. On our trip to Kaduna State, we drove along the Kaduna-Benin-Gwari Road. The 123-kilometer road trip seemed easy enough, but we had no idea what we were getting ourselves into. From Buruku village, right on the outskirts of Kaduna, there is a fully armored vehicle with soldiers who lead drivers 3 cars at a time from Buruku to Odoa town. This stretch is considered to be the most dangerous. Drivers have to wait their turn as they stand no chance of traveling safely to and fro Benin-Gwari without these escorts. From Odoa, the journey to Benin-Gwari is considered safe from the kidnappers and terrorists, whose victims are not just travelers but also villagers and farmers in and around this long stretch of road.
Our major problem in this area is insecurity. These terrorists have wrecked our town and destroyed our source of livelihood. Nobody sleeps in this town anymore. We take refuge in the neighboring community and come here every day at 8 or 9 a.m. and then leave at 3 or 4 p.m. Look at me. I'm the village head of this community. I used to own a car, but these criminals made me sell it to pay ransom for our children. I can't estimate how much we have paid to bandits as ransom because this community has been attacked more than 25 times.
We have a lot of problems in terms of insecurity on our road, more especially in between Burku and Udawa. So we have a lot of insecurity. We have only one vehicle, which is mobile police. They are the one escorting our members to carry them to Burku. Let's say from January up to now, at least we lost more than 30 of our members as a result of the bandits.
Forests in Nigeria are now hideouts for cattle rustlers, highway robbers, kidnappers, and terrorists due to the absence of state capacity or political will to exercise control. From Binigwari Forest in Kaduna to Rugu Forest in Katsina and Zafe in Zamfara, these forests are now referred to as ungoverned.
Arena is in Niger, Shiroro. From there you cross over to Coldwell. What security measures have we put in place for farmers and the indigents that are easy prey to these bandits?
Well, I have explained to you that Kaduna is very vast. The state is so huge. We had over 46,000 square kilometers. And I have also explained to you that we are having this problem mostly in locations that are remote. You know, boundaries with Niger State, boundaries with Zamfara, boundaries with Katsina State. You know, the locations are very remote. Even if there's a distress call, before you get there, it takes you time because of the terrain, mobility problem. But the Air Force is complementing the ground troops and the police as well. Once we receive a distress call from a location that is very far, what we do, the Air Force move while the ground troops and the police form a blocking force, you know, and it is really yielding positive mark. We don't have enough boots on the ground. There's a need for us to scale up recruitment. There's a need for security operatives or our security agencies to outnumber the criminals. We are not relenting, we are working, and we are making progress. In the first quarter of 2021, we were able to neutralize 64 bandits.
Our schools, just like our roads, have become hotspots of violence. Across northwestern Nigeria, from Zamfara to Kebbi, Kaduna, and Niger, about 1,000 students of primary schools, secondary schools, and even universities have been kidnapped since December 2020. Most have been released after payment of ransom, while scores are still being held in forest camps. Some of these students have died in captivity, and some killed during the abductions. Earlier this year, after the kidnapping of students at Government Science College, Kagara, Niger State, I asked the governor, Malam Abubakar Sani Bello, if a state could guarantee the safety of school children.
No one can guarantee that unless we have the numbers
the manpower of security personnel required. The Niger State, for example, during the military administrations, Niger State had 14,000 policemen. Today we have 4,000. Same Rafi local government where this kidnapping took place, Kagara town itself has less than 10 policemen. So how will it work? How? What magic could you do? We don't employ or employ policemen. I understand in the past, the state police command had the powers to employ policemen from the states, but it is no longer like that. And that's probably the reason why we're having problems.
That was back in March. Not much has changed since. Many have said that the present centralized structure of the Nigerian police is too detached from local communities. A vote conducted by NOI polls indicates that many Nigerians are in favor of state policing to bring security closer to the people. Experts say there is a need to reflect on the current security approach across the country.
The various institutions need to sit back and reflect that the current approaches that we are deploying to address security concerns, are they adequately addressing these issues? What are the intelligence mechanisms that you need to put in place to really get information on how crime is happening across various communities? So I think critically it is the model, it is the approach that seems to be a bit defective. We are practically waiting for violence to happen before we then react. We talk about community policing, especially for the police especially. I keep making reference to the police because they have the mandate when it comes to internal security. Community policing is very important. Then intelligence-led policing. We are not emphasizing that so much. Intelligence-led policing is that strategy through which you just want to get intelligence of what is happening in a certain community.
In the southeast, insecurity takes a different dimension. According to authorities, agitators for the indigenous people of Biafra, IPOB, a separatist group campaigning for Biafra independence, have been responsible for a spate of attacks on security forces and innocent people since December 2020. Olu, a local government in Imo State, has become a flashpoint of trouble in the region. On the 25th of January 2021, many Hausa-speaking traders in a market in Olu were going about their business when gunmen invaded the area, killing some and setting shops ablaze.
It is very, very unfortunate that this kind of thing would happen in 21st century Olu, 21st century Imo, 21st century Nigeria. People are not happy with the things, with the way this country is being run. When you talk about security, there is no security in Nigeria anymore.
We are here at the Islamic Central Mosque, Amafeke, and this is the third Friday without holding a Jumat service here because of insecurity issues. There is a lot of apprehension amongst the Muslim community.
This is my third year living in Olu, and I have never had any ugly experience living here until recently. During the NSAS protest, they burnt our mosque and killed some of our members in some part of Olu town. For 3 weeks now, we have been unable to observe our Jumat prayers in this mosque. We now live in fear. More worrisome is the absence of security operatives in the town. Despite all these incidents, the governor has not visited us to assure us or condole with us.
Since the January attack, Olu has had no peace. The people are in constant fear as these gunmen, time after time, unleash violence, destroy shops, kill, and even behead people in the community. In the southeast and south-south regions at large, dozens of security officials have been killed. Biafra agitation and the violence going on in the southeast have been said to be an untoward way of expressing dissatisfaction about leadership failure on the part of all tiers of government.
Well, I feel that there are many voices in the conversation to deal with the disaffection that people have about the Nigerian state. There are many voices, and evidently his is just one of those voices. But that may not be the optimal route to go. There are so many benefits of a functional, democratic, sound constitutional state. But where there are imperfections, you will now begin to see the voice that Nnamdi Kanu echoes or propagates. War is terrible. Sometimes you think about it from a more glamorous point of view, but it's bloody, it's heinous, it's damaging, it destroys families, societies, and so on and so forth. So my preoccupation is for peace. Okay, peace arrives through legitimate constitutional routes. That is what is most paramount. No society can develop without peace. And in terms of the disaffection of those of us who are from the southeast goes, there's a need to hear us and to look at our grievances and to consider them on their merits.
The southeast substantially mirroring Boko Haram. We have not been able to understand and deal with the issue of IPOB. The Igbo leadership allowed IPOB and ESN too much ground to take too much ground to control what is going on in the southeast. So they misread the threat of organizations like IPOB. There was opportunism, crass opportunism. People thought maybe this IPOB will do for us what we want. They will get for the Igbo what the Igbo didn't get through the political process. And eventually now we are creating a monster. And it's a monster that is eating up the local environment, the same way Boko Haram ate up Borno and Yobe and parts of Adamawa. IPOB and ESN are eating up the southeast. The federal government is throwing the military at them, the same way they threw the military at Boko Haram, rather than trying to understand the real issue. What is behind IPOB? Who supports them? Why do they support them? What is the issue that has made IPOB attractive to a large number of young people? Can you do something about it? Is it something you need to do about it?
I would say that the Southeast governments can do a whole lot better. The state governments, they can do a whole lot better in delivering services to the various constituent parts of the Southeast. We don't see enough of government in our rural communities, in the local government. We need to raise the bar as per the effectiveness of subnational entities. All right. Once we've gotten to a point where we can say for certainty that the state governments are operating optimally and delivering their own share of the governance dividend, then we can look elsewhere to seek inputs. But state governments in the Southeast need to up their game.
The Nigerian police force, on whose shoulder the responsibility of protecting the nation lies, is unable to perform its basic functions, forcing the Nigerian military to step in.
A society gets the kind of police that it pays for. Over the years, successive administrations have not made the connection around policing and development. So they just see the police as, oh, that is the police, and not critically putting it in the position of primacy, because people need to be safe internally first. You need to take care of the internal enemy before you begin to look at those ones that are threatening you on the outside. So over the years, there's been consistent underfunding, which is very, very critical. You want to undertake police operation, it has to do with funds, it has to do with state-of-the-art technology, equipment, and all of that. And then the manpower, less than 400,000 police personnel currently police a country of over 200 million. So what it means is that there is inadequacy somewhere. The police right now is overstretched. The country is very big and diverse. And then if you look at the scale of insecurity that is happening, it changes rapidly. So what it means is that the security landscape is not constant. You understand? So the police is trying to really grapple with all of this in the midst of very meager resources in terms of training, in terms of equipment, in terms of manpower, and every other thing. Government's approach in trying to address some of these inadequacies by the police has been to set up committees, police reform committees. But the question again is that each of these successive government that comes in set up a committee, do they make reference to the last committee to say, okay, what did my predecessor, found when he talk about policing challenges? How can I build upon that and actually implement this to make the police effective? But no. Our approach has been that, okay, I get into office and then I'm setting up my own committee.
Though the carnage isn't over yet, in more recent times, the joint military effort of the Nigerian Army and the Nigerian Air Force has recorded more success in combating terrorists and criminals.
In the last few months, the synergy and jointness among the three services has been cordial and overwhelming, which has resulted in the decimation of most of the criminal elements we have in this country.
While Nigeria may or may not reform its police soon, critics say the new conception of security now places emphasis on human and non-military variables, saying even the best of soldiers and policemen may be unable to maintain security in a country with a whopping 33% unemployment rate. Nigeria cannot solve its insecurity problems in isolation of other developmental issues. Where we go from here depends on our ability as a people, a government, and a nation to make the urgent steps needed to pull our country, Nigeria, from the brink.
Rivers crisis. My opponents are defeated. Fubara. And education. Nigerian student loan application opens May 24th. Federal government. I am Bola Oba, and this is Plus Politics. The Rivers State Governor, Siminalayi Fubara, declared on Thursday that his battles were over as he had defeated his opponents, who are not sleeping with their two eyes open. He said he had turned the tide against his opponents, noting that he was still in office about to mark his first anniversary, contrary to the plan by his detractors. Fubara spoke on Thursday amid the raging feud between him and his predecessor and estranged political godfather, Nyesom Wike. Last October, Fubara survived an impeachment plot by members of the Rivers State House of Assembly loyal to Wike. As of Wednesday, now 9 members of his cabinet loyal to Wike had tendered their resignation and exited. Addressing the national and state leadership of the Ijaw Youth Council on Thursday at the Government House in Port Harcourt, Fubara said he appreciated their support and the assurance that they were with him, but said there is nothing to call on you for because we have already defeated them. Take a listen.
I'm advising those people who call themselves local government chairman. You have a few days in office. Please conduct yourself. Politics will come, politics will go. We will still live our lives. Let anybody not deceive you. If you deliberately hurt anybody in the course of maybe expressing your useless support, nobody will forgive you. You will pay for it. So I'm begging everyone, please conduct yourself. As a matter of fact, I'm the one that is most hit, abused. Mumu governor, we don't know what to do with power, is it not? Have I said anything? And so please, just endure until when you finish, you go your way. I don't want any trouble. I don't want anything that will bring any problem in this state. I know what they want to do, but we will not give them the opportunity. We have made our promise to our leader, who happens to be the president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, that we will take the path of peace. And that is the path we're taking.
Joining us is Rivers State APC Publicity Secretary, Chibuike Ikenga. The publisher, Christiana Reports, Godswill Jumbo is also with us, and Rivers State and APC spokesperson, Darlington Waju. Gentlemen, welcome to Plus Politics. Okay, let's start with Mr. Jumbo. Mr. Jumbo, how would you want to start? Okay, in the interim, let's start with Mr. Ikenga then. Mr. Ikenga, how would you want to start?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Bola Oba. I feel very sad oftentimes when I'm invited to discuss the deepening crisis in Rivers State. I feel so because we are not the only state in Nigeria. Rivers State is just one out of 36, plus the FCT. Now, what other states are discussing is governance, development, accountability, transparency, and fighting so hard, assiduously, to lift their people out of poverty, to make their people live in a more comfortable environment, provide security for the people, as well as provide the enabling environment for jobs to be created and employment consequently. So, unfortunately, like you just said, played the clip of the governor. These are the issues. I did say severally that the governor is not talking like a statesman. The governor is the governor of both those who oppose or those who support him. And to say that he has defeated his opponents, I can tell you that who are his opponents? He is the governor of Rivers State. People can disagree with him, does not make them his enemies. The way the governor is talking is a sad reality. And we wish that he would change from that and become the statesman that a governor ought to be. Unfortunately, he has created ethnocentric ideas of they versus we. And that's an unfortunate and sad development in our state. We have veered off from governance, we have entered politics. When he says again that he has defeated his opponents, elections came over a year ago, and we should be talking about development now and not defeating opponents. By the way, who are his opponents? He's a member of the PDP and he's having internal crisis in his party. So if he has disagreed with his party members, they are not his enemies that he needs to defeat. It's just he could describe it as a storm in a teacup. And then if it is about his disagreement with Rivers State House of Assembly, you know, these things are constitutional issues that the courts will have to take their position before anybody begins to act. So taking laws into his hands and beginning to act dictatorially is most unfortunate, Bola.
Okay, let me go to Mr. Jumbo. Mr. Jumbo, how would you want to start?
So, first of all, isn't it quite interesting that the people that were heckling, harassing the governor are now the ones crying for talking about governance, talking about peace, talking about constitutionality, talking about how the governor is supposed to conduct himself as a statesman and all of that. But it was still in these states that people who belong to this camp were calling a sitting governor Mumu in public. They were calling him a Mumu governor. They were saying he could not win a unit, a ward. They were saying all kinds of things. Now they are the ones saying the governor is supposed to have a candor, a carriage. He should speak with class. None of that. Well, we want the governor to carry himself with dignity. We don't want the shenanigans of misguided elements, you know, in the state to drag him into the gutter. We want him to make a clear departure from the 8 years we have lost in governance in Rivers State. We want him to come as the intellectual, as a technocrat, as a professional, as the statesman that he is. We want less of that combative rhetoric. We want less of it. So for those of us who want the good of Rivers State, we are already on that. And we're telling the governor to scale down on that. He doesn't need to jump into the gutter with them. He doesn't need that. The people of Rivers State, you can see them in their large numbers coming out to celebrate with him, to meet him wherever they can find him, whether at government house, whether at project flag up venues, whether at commissioning, wherever the governor goes. The people of Rivers State, they come out in their large numbers. And I think that's fine. That's what it should be. Okay. So we want him to focus.
I'll come back to you.
Continue what he's doing
you,
already. Let these other people keep crying. We're not bothered. We'll buy handkerchief for them.
Okay. Is the coincidence of your name, Jumbo, in any way, shape, or form a coincidence, or you are related to the new speaker of the newly created House of Assembly?
Of course, the Jumbo Major House of ancient Grand Bonny Kingdom is an egalitarian house. It's the historically noble house that has provided Nigeria with very great inputs of leadership. The names roll out. So one of us, incidentally, my younger brother, emerging as the Speaker of the Rivers State House of Assembly, is in keeping with the trend of what Jumbo House is capable of.
You are related. You
Yes,
are
we are
related. Okay, thank you
Yes.
very much. Okay, let's go to Wanju. Wanju, let's get a bit of your philosophical touch as your kickoff start today.
Yes. Good evening, Mr. Bob.
Can you
hear me?
We can hear you well enough.
Okay. Okay, good evening. Well, I've listened to the other resource persons on this platform, and I want to quickly say that, let me dish out some measure of sarcasm by accusing Mr. Jumbo of trying to sit in judgment over his pattern. So he's sitting in. However,
Wanju's line. Maybe Mr. Wanju, you want to just keep it audio. I guess
of constitutionalism, the rule of law, because that any nation choosing to rule of law will fall in or subscribe to a state of lawlessness. And very strategic political relevance of the state. So that's my take.
Okay, Mr. Wanju, we may have to resort to you just calling in. Your line is a bit strained. Chief Ikenga.
Okay, it's raining. It's raining over here. It's raining over here. So I'll be having a bit of network challenges.
Okay, it could be. There's a bit of redundancy and this thing. But let me go to Mr. Ikenga now. Mr. Ikenga, as you must have heard from Mr. Jumbo, this is realpolitik, and the nature of realpolitik is that the finesse of constitutionalism is thrown into the wind. The person who has the wherewithal to muzzle the other side that is not with him will use it, and who cares? And now suddenly, like Riley said, at least a couple of weeks ago, a couple of days ago, some of the people in your camp were speaking condescendingly of the governor, were mocking him. And it was obvious that he was surrounded, somewhat surrounded by frenemies. I even once said on this show that he was walking constitutionally naked. But at this juncture, it does seem that he is articulating a force that is at least making your side, the APC and your new intake, your new members, who are members of the proclaimed House of Assembly, making you guys uncomfortable. How would you want to respond to that?
Okay, quickly, I'd like to talk to the young man. He was berating those whom he described as insulting the governor or being personal with comments like Mumu governor unfit to be a councillor and all that. As a person and as a party, we do not subscribe to gutter languages in describing those who hold exalted offices. The same thing I mentioned, that they have created a wall between we and they, us and we and they. Those are divisive rhetorics. You will also recall that the young man who spoke last, the Jumbo himself, will agree with me that when he said that people on the other side, people who belong to your group, that is appalling to begin to divide Rivers State. You will recall also that those who support the governor as he does go on air to malign the immediate past governor, to malign the leaders. And that is what we are against. And the governor is aware of all this and has not taken any step to stopping them from further creating crisis and dividing the state. Like I did say, everything we pursue as a party, the APC, is on grounds of constitutionality. We obey the rule of law, we respect it, we state clearly, we do not other than the one led by Right Honorable Martins Amehule. And having defected to a new political party from the party they got their mandate from. Are you on, sir?
We are
Hello?
on. We are on. Go ahead, please.
Are you on?
We are on. Can you hear me?
Having moved from, yes, I can hear you, Mr. Bola. Having moved from the PDP, where they originally got their mandates, to the APC, and by that, the Constitution made provisions that they will vacate their seats only if there are confirmation that there were no divisions in their party that could make it impossible for them to operate. But in this case, the House of Assembly members have clearly stated that they became very uncomfortable by the who support them and those who oppose them disagree. The executive and the legislature disagree. Where will the matter be settled? It will be settled by the judiciary, who will interpret the relevant sections of the Constitution. Wait until the decision is made before further actions. But in this case, the governor and his team have gone ahead to proclaim another House of Assembly, which is clearly unconstitutional, and we do not recognize them.
Ikenga, just like the governor and his supporters have the proclaimed assembly to live by, to their irritation, it is a fact of the circumstance as we speak that the other side too, your side, have asked to live with the fact that there is a parallel House of Assembly that is taking its life from a judicial pronouncement which at some point may have been rested because Edison Eye resigned to go assume the office of the Chief of Staff, and that house practically went to bed, but it's been resuscitated now. That is realpolitik. It smacks constitutionalism in the face, but you see, as it is now, until the Court of Competent Jurisdiction pronounces, that house is the one known to the executive arm of government in Rivers State. But let me I'll come back to you. Mr. Jumbo, it's gloating time now, I guess. Gloating time for those of you who are supporters of the governor. And, like your two colleagues have stated, like they will say, to HELL with constitutionalism. You guys don't care. The governor is still the chief executive officer of the state. The legislature may be put in a circumstance now where the constitutional order is practically, askance, and the judicial pronouncements have become one a penny in Rivers. But somebody like you, Jumbo, you are happy. More so when, as you've said, your younger brother is the beneficiary of the ultra-constitutional conduct of the governor. Why not? Life goes on. and you guys are happy. How would you want to respond to that, Jumbo?
I think you're creating a narrative that is of what is the reality. The reality is, regardless of what is your perspective, regardless of whatever is your political leaning, regardless of your sentiments, the law says in the Constitution, the ground norm of Nigeria, in section 109, subsections 1 down to 3, especially 1G, that when you leave the party that sponsored you to office, that you lose the seat. And the makers of the Constitution are very clear that that section of the Constitution is self-activated. It even goes further to even say even the Speaker loses his position once he ceases to be a member of the House of Assembly. How does he cease to be a member of the House of Assembly? One of the ways is to defect from the party that sponsored him to office. If you're a lover of constitutionalism, if you're a lover of Rivers State, we are not supporters of the governor. We are supporters of constitutionality. We are supporters of the rule of law. We are supporters of a society governed by laws. So if we lean towards the side of the governor, it is not because of sin. It is because of Rivers State. It is because of Nigeria. It is because of the laws that govern Nigeria. The laws that make Nigeria not to be a banana republic. That is where we tilt to. That is where we stand. So for those who align with the Constitution, this is what the Constitution has provided for. Those lawmakers, those former lawmakers, Martin Samewule and co., they know what the provisions of that section of the Constitution says. At the material time when they defected, December 11, 2023, there was no division in any unit, in any ward, in any state of the PDP. Even at the national level, there was no division anywhere, no crisis, maybe a few disagreements between one or two individuals. But as an institution, PDP did not have any crisis, any division that will warrant anybody defecting from the party. This is something that is, there for everybody to see. So they willingly, it is self-inflicted injury they have caused themselves. Nobody needs to be blamed for that. Nobody needs to be blackmailed emotionally for that. That is the position of the law. Okay, then go back to the governor has maintained his self. He has maintained focus. It is governance and nothing else. He has not interfered with the House of Assembly. Take note, whether it was Martin Samewule sitting, or it was Edison Ehie sitting, or Victor Okojumbo sitting, the governor never interfered. He allowed them carry out their legislative duties, and he has also focused on governance. So that is where we stand.
Hello, Jumbo.
Yes.
I can see that you are playing well enough the role of the judiciary. You are interpreting the Constitution. To the best of my understanding, there is an arm of government that is laden with the responsibility of interpreting the Constitution. But you see, like I said earlier on, why not gloat? Because come to think of it, like you rightly stated earlier on, there have been times when the principal figure of your predisposition now was being mocked as a Mumu governor by some, maybe not the Kengas of this world, but some openly mocked him. So let me wrap up now with Darlington Waju. Darlington Waju, we can go on forever. One side wanting to play the moral high ground, but we know that all the sides now seemingly are swimming in muddy waters, morally, constitutionally, and otherwise. Darlington Waju, how do you want to wrap it up? Is Darlington Waju there? Okay, gentlemen, about time we rested this segment of the show. We will be coming back with another topic for the day. We want to say thank you to you, gentlemen. See you some other time. And we'll go on a short break. When we're back, we'll take on the second segment of the show. The Nigerian government announced that students can apply for loans to finance their education starting May 24th, 2024. This follows the launch of an online application portal by the Nigerian Education Loan Fund, NELF Fund. This initiative fulfills President Bola Tinubu's campaign promise to make university education more accessible. He signed the Access to Higher Education Act in June 2023, allowing students to obtain interest-free loans from NEL Fund for any accredited Nigerian institution. The program initially aimed for a September 2023 launch, but encountered delays. In January 2024, President Tinubu expanded the program to include loans for vocational skills training, recognizing the importance of both academic and technical qualifications. Joining us is the National President of Academic Staff Union of Universities, the Coordinator Congress of University Academics, CONUA, Dr. Niyi Sumonu. Dr. Sumonu, welcome to Plus Politics.
Thank you very much for having me on this program this evening. Thank you.
You're welcome. What would be your initial response to the intro I've just read?
Yeah, thank you very much once again. And I want to say good evening to Nigerians. First, the office is the National President of the Congress of University Academics. That's the office I occupy.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you for the correction.
The NEL Fund, the National Education Loan Initiative by the government of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's administration, is in line with what is obtainable on the international scene. That is making education accessible to all and sundry, tertiary education, without being denied because of fund. So this is a good initiative. It's a welcome development. The only thing the Congress of University Academics would like to put on the table for consideration by the current government is that lessons that one thinks will have been learned from the previous attempts at providing loans for tertiary education in Nigeria, those lessons should be brought on board so that this would not be another failed attempt. And on record, we have that the regime of General Yakubu Gowon in the 1970s made attempts to provide loan for education. At a point, it suffered some setbacks due to, I will mention that in a moment. In 1993-94, thereabout, the government of General Ibrahim Badamasi Babangida also tried to make loan available for tertiary or for education generally. That's also suffered some setback. And those two previous attempts suffered setbacks because of endemic corruption, and possibly partly because of unavailability of data of the beneficiaries, which is closely linked to the issue of corruption. So one expects the government of the day leveraging on advances in technology, leveraging on data that has accrued over time, data being obtained from Nigerians, NIN, BVN, and so on and so forth, to be able to track beneficiaries and bring on board the failure of the past so that what happened in the past will not repeat itself. It's a good attempt by the government to inject more funds into tertiary institutions, into tertiary education. And for us in Konwa, it's a good development.
But like you rightly stated, and from the historical perspective, it's not that it's not been tried before. We may have the advantage of technology, as rightly stated. We may have the seeming advantage of documentational advantage, given the fact that at least there are databases now to consult, to check who is a bona fide Nigerian, and the tertiary institutions too, indeed vocational institutions, can have their records easily verified now because of the advantage of technology. But there is an innate fact that you've spoken to, which is still very endemic in our climate, and it is so endemic that even all the known advantages of technology to humanity is practically being messed up and defied in Nigeria. You have situations across the world where technology is aptly and proficiently utilized to decapitate criminality, terrorism. But in Nigeria, we can see that with budgets as lousy as the ones that security has gotten in Nigeria in the last 10 years plus, terrorism, criminality are festering. Security is becoming daily an issue. And I'm sitting here, I'm thinking, intellectuals like you should be letting the government know that it is one thing to have a good idea, but in so much as this fund is now going to be functioning as a government parastatal, and like 99.9% of government parastatals in Nigeria, these two will go moribund. What would be your response to that remark?
So if I get your point very well, you are speaking to the issue of endemic corruption, if I get that well.
Which is a fact.
Yeah. So as far as we are concerned, as far as I'm concerned, honestly speaking, it is the willpower that the government lacks with respect to fighting corruption. Possibly because some of their friends, some of their cronies are involved. Corruption cannot be fought on selective basis. Corruption will be fought on holistic basis. That if you want to result, you must fight it on holistic basis. And like one of the leaders in the country said some time ago, that if you fail to fight corruption, corruption will kill any organization, any nation, if you allow it to fester the way it is festering in this country. No initiative will thrive, no matter how good the initiative is. No initiative will thrive with respect to corruption. Has this education loan functioned in some countries, worked fine in some countries? The answer is yes. And if we check those countries, it's near absence of corruption. I'm not saying total eradication of corruption, but if you do the crime, you must be ready to do the time. So if government over the time, over the years, have made example of people who have corruptly enriched themselves, no matter how highly placed they are, others will pick lessons. You see, punishment is not to destroy the person who commits any offense. Punishment is for reformation. In addition to reformation of the person who commits the offense, punishment is also good for others, onlookers, other citizens to take lessons that if I attempt to do what this man has done, I'm going to go the way he has gone.
I guess deterrence.
But if you allow...
For deterrence, I guess you want to...
Yes, for deterrence, yes. So it also serves as deterrence for other citizens so that they won't want to go the same route. But what we have in the country is is a situation where somebody does the crime, he knows A, B, C, and you beg, you consult and stuff like that, and you are given a slap on the wrist. So coming back to the issue of NEL Fund, the education loan, I think the lessons of the past, specifically with respect to corruption, which is directly linked to the data, the government should deploy all available technology at detecting fake students, fake applicants, applicants that are not in the tertiary institution that the NEL Fund covers. When you do all that, and you do it honestly, sincerely, this is an attempt that will, this is an initiative that should bode well for the country, for our tertiary institution, and largely, in generally, the country.
Dr. Sumonu, does CONUA make suggestions to government on matters pertaining to education?
Yes, we do from time to time. With respect, specifically with respect to NEL Fund, we submitted on 2 occasions, one in 2023, another one specifically on 17th March 2024, of our perspective on how the Act should read, what should contain in the Act, the advantages, and the areas we would like the government to look into so as to avoid some pitfalls that befell the previous 2 attempts. So from time to time, on various educational policies, we reach out to the government, we send letters to the government, we send position papers to the government.
And you are quite happy with how this is unfolding? Just asking.
Like I said at the onset, it's a good policy because it's one of the international best practice. In the implementation, the Nigerian factor, we should not allow it to set in. We should do it the way it should be done because it's one of the ways of injecting additional fund into the tertiary education system that we complain about from time to time.
Dr. Sumonu, however, the other university teachers or lecturers association is of the belief that the fund should not be a loan, that the instrumentality of a grant should be used. Do you and your colleagues in Konwa, in any way, shape, or form, believe that this should be a grant rather than the low interest or no interest loan for which it's been defined statutorily?
Our perspective differ a little bit. For us, there was going to be, for this loan, there is going to be a sense of belonging to all beneficiaries that I am committed to my country. With respect to grants, our position remains that the government should consider award of scholarship, grants, bursaries, and other targeted subsidies at various levels. To who? To very indigent but exceptionally gifted students. Fingers are not equal. You have exceptionally gifted, but they could be indigent. This category, in our own perspective, of students, of candidates, of applicants, should be granted scholarships, should be granted bursaries.
So
these are our position. And let me say that there's beauty in looking at things from different perspectives. It's only that time that you can actually make progress. When we all sleep and face one direction, there's likely not to be any meaningful development. There's not likely not to going to be any meaningful development.
So a form of a marketplace for student financing is about being birthed by this statute and the establishment that is predicated on the statute. However, the ultimate essence anywhere in the world where universities thrive, the ultimate essence of students financing or funding is to have those funds ultimately be piped into those institutions where the students will go, so that services of professionals like yourself and the requisite learning ecosystem will be well funded, because education is not cheap. I want to believe that we agree on that. Quality education is not cheap. So do you, as the president or the leader of a major university teachers association, do you see this program ultimately going any further to lubricate the financing imperatives of tertiary institutions, especially universities, where Konwa functions?
I think I've alluded to that in my previous intervention, that this is one of the ways of injecting more fund into the tertiary institution that we all complain about. The act, the little I've checked in the act, how it is done in other parts of the world is to inject the fund A, B, C, D as applied for the loan, and they have been successful, found successful to be recipient of the loan. Instead of paying A, B, C, D directly, you pay their institutions to provide things needed for their education. When you do that, and it is honestly deployed, devoid of corruption, this will inject more resources for learning, will improve the environment for learning.
Dr. Niyi
So I've alluded to
Sumonu,
that in my intervention.
Dr. Niyi Sumonu, we really want to appreciate you. We would have loved to engage with you, to engage further with you, but unfortunately time, that dictator on a show like this is denying us that opportunity. We look forward to having you some other time. Thank you, sir, for your...
Thank you very much, sir. I want to appreciate you for getting our perspective on this very important scheme.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yes.
This is where we wrap it up for today. We want to thank you for being part of the program this evening. I am Bola Oba. Have a good evening.
Black entrepreneurs face significant challenges when starting and growing businesses. Many have a hard time accessing the resources they need due to what they say is discrimination and sometimes bias. However, some successful business Black entrepreneurs have found ways to overcome these obstacles. The Black Startup Series is a new documentary series about successful Black-owned business founders in America. It is produced by Ethiopian-American filmmaker Net Araya, who is currently screening the series to audiences in colleges around the country. He joined me to talk about the series and the importance of financial literacy in Black communities. Let's take a look.
Well, Jackson, I'm ready to showcase a new film and financial literacy tour called the Black Startup Series. And it's a 3-part documentary series that spotlights startup stories of successful Black-owned business founders. And the goal with this project is to be able to really shed some clarity around entrepreneurship and financial education within our global Black community.
Especially among the Black community.
Absolutely.
How did your work as an entrepreneur inform this project you're working on right now?
Yes, so as a filmmaker and entrepreneur, I've been blessed to have the opportunity to travel the world. So I've been to places like Ethiopia, Senegal, all over the Middle East, and I've seen that there is a surplus of talent within our global Black community, but also a scarce of access to opportunity. So as we all know, access is the cornerstone of power, and I've noticed that talent is universal, but the access to opportunity is not. So now with this documentary, we're providing access to diverse number of stories of representation that we all can see ourselves in.
I mean, I've had you on the show a couple of times, starting way back in 2019. Right. And then 2020, we caught up again, but this time we were in lockdown at the beginning of the pandemic.
Right.
You had a new venture going on. How was it starting a business during the pandemic?
It was interesting because essentially I was supposed to be a passive investor for a brick and mortar coffee business, but we changed our brick and mortar to a click and order business model where we turned Ground Zero into a supplying company.
Your company was called Ground Zero.
Ground Zero Coffee, East African coffee company focused on community impact through social impact. And that's what we did. We just started delivering coffee, quality coffee at people's convenience to their doorsteps. And it transitioned into being a big supply company where we supply Walmart now. We're in the Walmart marketplace to different hotels, coffee shops. And now it's able to fund and fuel a lot of my community-based initiatives.
In 2019, when we first connected, you had a documentary you were working on Why don't you remind our listeners what that was about?
Yeah, we go way back, Jackson. When I first started in 2019 with that new documentary, it was focused on mental health within our global Black community and ways that we can be able to destigmatize mental health and be a little more comfortable talking about the silent issues that often go on inside all of us. So I went through a lot of opportunities where I was touring, sharing the film, increasing conversation awareness around mental health, and it led me now to a new project where we're now focused on entrepreneurship within our global Black community.
Right, and we'll get to that. But then you started your coffee business. We went through the pandemic. It's almost 2.5 years now. How are things looking for you?
It's amazing. The coffee business now funds and fuels the community-based initiatives, and one of them is happening right now.
Right. How did your work as an entrepreneur inform this project you're working on right now?
Yeah, so as a filmmaker and entrepreneur, I've been blessed to have the opportunity to travel the world. So I've been to places like Ethiopia, Senegal, all over the Middle East, and I've seen that there is a surplus of talent within our global Black community, but also a scarce of access to opportunity. So as we all know, access is the cornerstone of power, and I've noticed that talent is universal, but the access to opportunity is not. So now with this documentary, we're providing access to diverse number of stories of representation that we all can see ourselves in.
So the documentary series, 3 parts, right? It tells the stories of Black entrepreneurs, is that correct?
Yes.
What are some of the things that you want people to learn from? What is the message, the overarching message in this series?
Yeah, I want to help aspiring entrepreneurs become successful business owners. That's one aspect. And then I also want to be able to shed light and awareness about some amazing Black-owned businesses and connect them with investors. Something interesting that I came across during my studies is that $83 trillion is invested in venture capital and private equity, but only less than 1.3% is invested in women and people of color. Total.
Less than
1.3%.
Wow.
Is invested in women and people of color.
That's a very small figure.
Right.
So how do we increase that?
That's what we're here to talk about, and those are the major questions I'm wrestling with. So the goal is, with this Film and Financial Literacy Tour, to focus on ways that we can make opportunities and capital more accessible within our global Black community and make entrepreneurship more attainable. So these are the type of conversations that's listed in the documentary that we want to spark within our community.
So what is the gap? Why is there less money going towards Black entrepreneurs? Is it because they don't know how to access these resources? Is it because the owners of these resources are not willing to invest in these Black businesses?
You know, it's important that we focus on Black-owned business, not as charity, but as lucrative business opportunities for investors to really invest and grow significant profit. So I think there's an educational, there's a bit of educational gap within Black-owned businesses, because I don't think we have the access to education resources as we need to. We're good at starting business because I think we're very entrepreneurial at spirit, but scaling has its own different challenges, right? And scaling requires a significant amount of knowledge base and resources in order to kind of improve the business and bring awareness to investors, for them to really identify opportunities that really can profit.
And in this series, you feature some entrepreneurs, Black entrepreneurs. What did they tell you is the thing that made them get ahead of the game?
Black persistence, at its core. I met so many people within this documentary, and they were telling me their story of how persistent they were and consistent they were in being able to attain great business success. So these individuals were people that were very curious, that were relentlessly resourceful, and they really were able to overcome so many challenges to get to where they are. And they have been on Vogue. They've been in New York Times. These people are wearing the Met Gala, doing some incredible things. So I'm really inspired and excited for the world to see it.
Did you see yourself in some of their stories?
I did. Even my story with Ground Zero Coffee, and being able to really relate to their story of being persistent, especially when you hear no's all the time. And I tell people all the time that, one yes can change the trajectory of your life. But the question is, how many no's are you willing to go through to get to that one yes that will change your life? And these people are people that are relentless to get to that one yes.
They've gotten so many no's, but that one yes has been the thing that has actually given them access to...
Absolutely. And most importantly, they said yes to themselves. They were able to see the greatness in themselves before they were able to amount to great things.
I like
and that's what I want the film, that's what I want a lot of people to see within the film, that these are amazing people and you can see yourself in them, but it's important that we say yes to ourselves, our own ideas, our own entrepreneurship business concepts, and really step out and make it happen.
Aside from access to resources, what would you say is the thing or some of the factors that impede Black entrepreneurship?
One of them, I think, is just access to education, because I think it's important for us within the ideation stage of business development to not just think about just starting a business to start a business, but really think about incrementally scaling, or eventually looking at ways for the business could be acquired or going IPO. A lot of these have gatekeepers, you know, and it's important that we understand that how we can get access to the information early within the ideation stage of business development so that we can be a little more strategic and sustainable as a business and community.
And who are you targeting with it? Is it the people that, is it people in the Black community? Is it the people that was the resource holders?
Yeah, I think it's gonna be a little bit of both, right? Because it takes a partnership, right? You know, I heard that, you know, if you want to go fast, go alone, but if you want to go far, go together, right? Yes. So I think it requires investors, a community of investors, startup founders, you know, and different people, professionals, to really get together and really look at ways to really elevate business and community.
Tell us some of these people, some of the stories of the people that you feature in these stories.
Well, the first one is Paola Mate. She's a Haitian-American entrepreneur that came from Haiti to America, and she was based in New Jersey, then moved to New York. She was managing many different restaurants and decided she wanted to launch her own luxury head wrap brand. And from there, now she's been able to transition to Austin. She has a storefront, beautiful store, and she does so many different things. She does workshops for young Black women, like head wrap workshops, and she's doing some exciting things. Another one is Kobla Tate, CEO and co-founder of Break the Box, which is a home ownership empowerment program helping Black professionals get into home ownership. And then the last person is JP, and JP has his own company called JP's Pancake Company. He launched the first gourmet pancake food truck in Austin, Texas. Wow. So these are stellar, successful entrepreneurs in 3 different industries that are dominating the game right now.
What are some of the tips that you can give, financial literacy tips, so, you know, financial tips to people who have aspirations to be entrepreneurs?
I think one of the first things that I've learned that's helped me within my financial literacy journey was to see my life as a business and to understand that you are the CEO of your life. And the way you manage your life is the way you'll manage your business. So if you understand how to really manage and budget, and I think budget has its own negative connotation within our community because we think it's full of restrictions and self-deprivation, but it's not about self-deprivation. It's about self-awareness. So because you, at the end of the day, you put your money where your values are. Right? And where your values are is where you're going to go in life. So I think having a budget and looking at where you get your income, where you get your expenses, where you spend your money on, really is very telling of kind of like the relation that you have with finances. So I think creating a budget, having a good mindset about a budget, it doesn't have to be restrictive. It can actually be empowering. Second thing I would say, financial discipline. What good is financial literacy if you don't have financial discipline, right? So financial discipline is important, right? We need to really be disciplined, and if you need
You can't just keep spending and spending.
You keep spending, right? And with that, garner some accountability, you know? Get with people that are around the same level, or a bit ahead of you, so that you can be able to get a network. And we all know that, you know, your network is your net worth. So I think accountability, financial discipline, and creating a budget, understanding that you need to manage your life first before you start managing business, I think that's a huge tip.
What is the first step to being an entrepreneur? Is it having an idea? Is it acquiring the resources to start the business? Is it a self-belief? Where does one gain that confidence to say, let me do this, I want to do this?
Yeah, I've heard long ago, and I was actually reading this in a book, to start a business, it takes more courage than knowledge. To scale a business takes more knowledge than courage. So I think for entrepreneurs, it starts with our creativity. It starts with our entrepreneurial spirit. It starts with us being able to see a need, a void, and being willing to step in within that gap to really super serve our audience. So I think that's the huge step. Having that courage and understanding that you're going to fail, but your altitude of success is actually dependent on your relationship with failure. So if you have a healthy relationship with failure and you can understand that it's not about being perfect, it's just about being willing.
Failing is okay.
Failing is okay.
Hello and thanks for joining us. My name is Nyamgul Agaji and this is the news update. Right Honorable Elverd Ekom Ayambem has been impeached as the Speaker of the Cross River State House of Assembly. The Speaker was impeached on Wednesday by 17 members of the House over allegations of misappropriation of funds. The impeachment motion was moved by Honorable Effiom Ekarika, representing Calabar South 1 constituency, and seconded by Honorable Omang Charles Omang, representing Bekwara State constituency. Right Honorable Elverd Ayambem was elected Speaker of the 10th Cross River State House of Assembly in June 2023. Ayambem represents the Com 2 State constituency in the House of Assembly. Justice James Kolawole Omotosho of the Federal High Court in Abuja has granted permission to the impeached Deputy Governor of Edo State, Philip Shuaibu, to join the Speaker of the State Assembly in his suit challenging his impeachment before the court. The judge also granted order to the former Deputy Governor to join his successor as a defendant in the suit. Delivering ruling on Wednesday in a motion on notice filed by Shuaibu, the judge agreed with his counsel, Ayotunde Ogunleye, that both the Speaker and the new Deputy Governor are necessary parties in the suit. The judge held that under Section 188 of the 1999 Constitution, the name of the Speaker features prominently in the impeachment process, hence must be brought to the court for order that would be made to legally bind on them. Justice Omotosho dismissed the objections raised against the motion on notice by the Speaker and the Deputy Governor for being frivolous and without merit. He subsequently invoked Order 17, Rule 1 of the Federal High Court and ordered that the Speaker and the Deputy Governor be joined in the suit. The court also granted permission to the former Deputy Governor to amend his originating summons in the suit to reflect the name of the Speaker and the Deputy Governor as 9th and 10th defendants in the case. Meanwhile, hearing in the substantive suit has been fixed for June 3 based on the accelerated hearing ordered by the judge. River State Governor Siminalayi Fubara has sworn in 8 commissioner nominees that were screened by the State House of Assembly on Tuesday, charging them to cultivate the culture of keeping accurate records of their dealings in the various ministries. The governor maintained that such culture is essential for the effective functioning of any organized system, particularly the civil service, because they provide a useful history of events, decisions and actions, including indices of productivity. The swearing-in ceremony was held at the Executive Council chamber of the Government House last night, hours after the State Assembly, led by Victor Okojombo, screened and confirmed all 8 nominees by Governor Fubara. The governor described as regrettable how some commissioners who had left the administration ignored the culture of proper documentation because they had no record of activities in the ministries that they served. The governor said discipline is central to his administration, a work culture that has been nurtured while growing through the ranks in the civil service, saying that it must be the hallmark of anybody who is associated with his government. The divisional police officer of New Marte in Marte local government area of Borno State has been killed by members of the Islamic State for West Africa province, ISWAP. It was gathered that the DPO, a superintendent of police, was killed on Monday night while defending the police station at the resettled community from the terrorists who sneaked into the community on foot in the middle of the night. Confirming the death on Wednesday, the spokesman for the Borno State Police Command, Nuhun Kenneth, said the command is still gathering details of the attack. However, a military personnel serving in New Marte said the terrorists targeted one of the residents of the community who got a hint and ran to the police station for protection. The military personnel said the terrorists got into the town on foot without any usual motorcycles and vehicles. New Marte is 93 kilometers from Maiduguri at the fringes of the Lake Chad region. It is a resettled community which is initially overrun by the terrorists but was rebuilt by Professor Babagana Zulum's administration. The Nigeria Customs Service NCS Federal Operations Unit FOU Zone B Kaduna State said it has impounded consignment of donkey bones and donkey meat with a combined duty paid value of over 3 billion naira within 1 month. Addressing the journalists in Kaduna, the Custom FOU Zone B Kaduna Comptroller Ahmadu Shaibu says the preservation of endangered species such as donkeys is illegal. Trading which contravenes the laws of 2023. He revealed that they have intercepted a vehicle along Sokoto-Gusau conveying illicit goods and made seizures of 58,740 sachets of tramadol, 48,000 ampules of analgesic injection.
The donkey bones are more expensive than the donkey meat. International price, international market. They don't use it in Nigeria. Huh? So they find a way to smuggle it out of this country to the rest of the world. The first vehicle showed to you containing the donkey bones was picked in Sokoto State. The meat, the dried meat, I told you, were picked up along Kwantogora-Tegina Road in Niger State. Equally, we have defendants in the cell. They have to answer. They have to have the relevant agency to prove where and where are they going to.
He expressed worry that donkeys and other animals are already near extinction and the Nigerian government will not allow such menace to thrive in Nigerian society.
We are focused, committed, and prepared to continue to carry out this assignment with utmost sense of courtesy and unwavering professionalism. The success we are showcasing today is therefore a demonstration of our collective determination to continue to carry out our duty with individual attention and without fear of failure. Those who wish to try our resolve should have anything, as we shall be unsparing in implementing the laws and policy directives of the federal government as the unscrupulous individuals. The bad guys have been trying to undermine the rule of state. But we want a message to be passed on to them. Whoever is caught in this act will surely face the wrath of the law and shall be brought to justice.
Delta State Governor Sheriff Oborevwori has identified receding coastlines, declining aquaculture and extreme weather conditions as major challenges hindering the sustainable development of the South-South region of Nigeria. Governor Oborevwori, who stated that these at the 13th Extraordinary General Meeting of the Forum of Monarchs in the South-South region, said that environmental decay impacts negatively on the ecosystem. Oborevwori charged them to remain pillars of integrity and fairness, mediating conflicts and upholding justice in their various domains.
Of the modern world, we are uniquely positioned to bridge the gap between communities and the government. As a traditional ruler, you have to foster unity, diversity. As we meet on this auspicious occasion, charge you to continue to be the pillar of integrity and fairness. Hold justice in your communities, mediate conflicts with impartiality, and be the voice of the reason.
On his part, the Managing Director of the Niger Delta Development Commission, NDDC, Chief Samuel Ogbuku, gave an overview of the giant strides of the Commission, disclosed that a lot of development was going on in different states under NDDC mandate area.
Well, the truth is that it's simple. It's just all about data. Once data is being collated and all those who have registered on that platform, you select from that data. So the data will tell you if you're looking for welders, definitely you search for welders in the database based on the number you want to train, where they're from, and especially subject it to quota of production, because everything we do in NDDC will subject it to quota of production. So we use those figures and we'll get them.
Let me therefore enjoin you all to support government to intensify efforts to stop oil theft and buffering in the Niger Delta. Because you can see that today, if you look at the quota that is being given to Nigeria, we are not able to meet up because of oil theft. I think it's a very, very serious problem in the Niger Delta region. And every time I have opportunity to meet with Mr. President, he has always re-echoed it that I should talk to our people to see that let there be peace and let there be harmony in the region. The need to build confidence between stakeholders for sustainable development cannot be overemphasized. We as traditional rurals are convinced that if the basic elements, identity of interest, clarity of vision, honest of intent, and oneness of purpose will not achieve the desired objective.
The Kaduna State Governor, Senator Uba Sani, has commissioned 9-kilometer feeder road of Zone 2 Falanki, Kare, Lahadi in Kubwa local government area of the state. The governor said the road project is part of his administration's rural transformation agenda aimed at linking urban and rural roads to bring development to the doorsteps of the residents of the state. Speaking at the commissioning, the governor, who was represented by the Accountant General of the state, Honorable Bashir Suleiman, noted that the road network will address post-harvest challenges.
A lot of road construction is ongoing, and we just commissioned one from Zone 2 Ward to Falanki to Kadawa, Hausawa, to Kadawa, Amawa, and to Kare Ward, which is approximately 10 kilometers. Kubwa local government, 80% of people living in Kubwa local government are farmers. So all we know is farming. So this access road, of course, it's going to help transport those food products from the farm to the market. Of course, that would reduce post-harvest losses and increase income. And secondly, it reduces the time. In the last 6 months, when you come to Zone 2 Ward and you want to drive down to Kari, it takes you about 45 minutes drive. But as of today, 10 to 15 minutes drive will take you to Kari Ward. And the Governor Uba Sani-led administration intend to achieve by extending the required socio-economic infrastructure to support work, social lives in our rural communities, building networks of roads and drainages in the rural government area. The administration has proactively identified poverty reduction in rural areas as vital to amplifying the enormous potential of Kaduna State for economic and sustainable growth. With solar street lights to improve security infrastructure. Road project, which is among so many others across the state, is strategic to enable farmers to transport their goods to market more efficiently, reducing post-harvest losses, increasing income. Additionally, feeder road improves access to healthcare, clinics, education, and other vital services. Use of this road to the benefit of all.
From other parts of Africa, Chadian Prime Minister Success Masra said on Wednesday he had handed in his resignation just over 2 weeks after his defeat to junta chief Mahamat Idris Deby Itno in presidential elections. The move, he added, was also in accordance with the constitution. Deby, who is 40, was proclaimed transitional president in April 2021 by a junta of 15 generals after his father, iron-fisted President Idris Deby Itno, had been shot dead by the rebels after 30 years in power. He won the May 6 presidential vote with 61% of the ballot, according to final results. Masra, also aged 40 and once a fierce Deby opponent before becoming prime minister 4 months ago, won 18.5% of the vote but contested the result. He claimed victory in the ballot, which his party called masquerade and which international rights groups had said would be neither credible nor fair. Outside Africa, a funeral prayer was held on Wednesday in Tehran for Iranian President Ibrahim Raisi, Foreign Minister Hossein Amir Abdullahian, and other officials who died on Sunday in a helicopter crash. Iran's Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei led a funeral prayer at Tehran University, attracting thousands of attendees who eagerly awaited entry into the limited prayer area. Following the prayer, hundreds of thousands of people gathered in Revolution Square and surrounding roads to attend the funeral ceremony in Azadi Square. Officials directed the public from Azadi Street to Azadi Square for the ceremony due to the growing crowd. After the ceremony, Raisi's body will be taken to the city of Mashhad, while Amir Abdullahian's body will be buried in Tehran. The body or the burial procedures will take place after the ceremony is scheduled for Thursday. On May 19, a helicopter carrying Iran's president and foreign minister crashed in the Iranian province of East Azerbaijan. The head of the Iranian Red Crescent Society, Per Hossein, Kolivand, announced on Monday that all the passengers and crew of the helicopter had died in the crash. In entertainment news, controversial social media critic Martin Osei, popularly known as Very Dark Man, has been remanded in police custody until his next hearing, which is billed to be held next week, Wednesday. Osei was reportedly arraigned at the Federal High Court sitting in Abuja on Wednesday for cyberbullying involving Nollywood actress Iyabo Ojo and Tonto Dike, to which he pleaded not guilty. His lawyer, Deji Adeonju, applied for bail, but the prosecution asked for more time to respond, leading the court to adjourn the bail hearing to May 29. And finally, sports news. Head coach Nigerian women's beach volleyball team Kayode Ajilore has expressed optimism following the impressive display by the players in camp as they prepare for the forthcoming Paris 2024 Olympic Games qualifiers. The Nigerian women's beach volleyball team resumed camp last month as they began preparations with 9 players who have been training under the supervision of Ajilore ahead of the game, the grim battle for the sole ticket allotted to Africa. The qualifiers will be held in Morocco from June 19th to 23rd. Meanwhile, Nigeria's women's beach volleyball team won bronze at the 13th African Games in Ghana to book a place in the qualifiers. According to the Volleyball World Governing Body, the winners of each of the 5 Continental Confederations Olympic qualification events earn 1 spot, and Nigeria will hope to pick the available slot from Africa. And that's the news brief for... And that's the news update. For more stories, please follow us on Facebook, X and Instagram, and do subscribe to our YouTube channel at Plus TV Africa and Plus TV Africa Lifestyle. You can also view us from Limex on limex.tv and Glow TV apps anywhere in the world. My name is Nyamgul Agaji. Thank you for being there.
I will take you through this amazingness today.
Welcome to Plus Trending. I am Bukky November, your host, saying thank you for joining us on today's episode.
Welcome back. It's tea time on Plus TV Africa.
Practice makes perfect. I'm not perfect yet, but I'm a lot better than I used to be.
He's a king. He's entitled to marry 100 if he wants to.
Today, I am visiting Chinasa and Akanimo, 2 good friends of 8 years. Their friendship is the kind admired by people who know them. These 2 ladies share their friendship journey. They weren't so close even though they work together.
First of all, friendship is a blessing, especially if you're living in today's world. You can't just peddle everything that is happening in this world. You need someone else that probably sees the same, through the same lens, have the same values, and not just in front of people or in front of the cameras we are today, but behind closed doors. Someone that would not really push, but is patient enough to wait till you come around. Funny thing is that someone has asked me, especially concerning our friendship, I said, what if tomorrow, NASA turns like a sour grape? And my answer had been that I would forever be grateful for the times that we were friends, because they were excellent moments.
So friendship for me, to your question, is trust, respect, the ability to be yourself. And I like what Ike said, when I knew that we're doing this interview, I was thinking about it, you know what? In truth, nothing in life lasts forever. We do hope that this friendship continues for as long as God tarries, as they say. But I think that what I have also been able to categorically tell myself is that should this friendship go the other way for some whatever reason, I can't imagine what that reason is, we're no longer friends, I will be grateful for the opportunity of this kind of friendship. And I say this because in a world where people can't even trust, you know, the people around, not even family members, to find this kind of relationships, I'm just like, we're thankful to God that you can be honest and truth, you know, you can get the truth from them. You can feel safe, like a safe space. You know, that's what friendship is to me.
So there are a lot of things that we don't agree on. There are a lot of things, we have different tastes in different things. But at the end of the day, the core remains the same. So knowing, just as she said, the core, everything else we can take.
We haven't actually had a time where we've not been talking. And if it has happened, maybe it was just me thinking, I'm not talking to Ike and she's not aware. Like, she's totally oblivious. I probably called me. I mean, sometimes I blocked her on WhatsApp. Like, I'm not talking to Ike. And then people were like, don't worry, it's not both of you. But even that was as a joke because, again, it's the genuineness of the relationship. Like, I can be a total, for lack of a better word, I can be a jerk sometimes. But I also know that she gets it. Like, she's not going to label me and say, oh, Nasa is just this annoying person. Like, she's like, Nasa is in one of her moods. And so I think with that appreciation, you're like, okay, yeah, I can always talk to this person. It doesn't matter. I don't feel a type of way.
It's a good thing that she's annoying because sometimes she is annoying.
Oh, but she is too.
We did not like ourselves at first. So it's not
it wasn't love at first sight.
Now, if there's anything that our friendship has, you know, demonstrated is growth. Gradual growth. When you see something is organic, this friendship is really organic in the sense that it just grew from seeing that this person you know, and we kind of have the same principles, and the journey has been slow and steady. There's no forceful attempt to make, you know, either of us friends. So it's not like sit down and tell me everything about your life, if not so this friend. Yeah, so we can become friends. So we catch up on it. Yeah, and as we go, we take it every day. And till today, I'm still learning some things about Nasa. She has friends from different circles that probably know more stories than I do. You get, and the same thing, vice versa. But, you know, there's that steady growth. When it comes to personal development, we've been on journeys together.
Absolutely.
We're always seeking it, okay? Starting from, I don't know, just wanting to be better at public speaking. So we've gone on Toastmasters journey together. We've done our MBA together. We're going to start French sometime together. We're going to do our project management together. And these plans are, I don't know, so it's not like we sit down and think about it. But we just know that we want to be better women.
The foundation of this friendship is being our shared development goals, personal, you know, we're talking and like, you know, I want to do this. Like, yeah, I mean, public speaking started with, you know, how did I even start? I think
we said we were going to be, you know, preparing to the next level of life.
Where we're going to
in life. And we need to be prepared so that it doesn't take us by surprise. You know, moving to mid-management and then senior management and, you know, being career women. We're like, we need to be prepared for this. No, we can't start preparing in the battle.
Or some people. So we said, let's go and start Toastmasters. And we started that journey together. And then there was MBA. And then she had a mentor that she was gracious enough to share with me. And we have this one mentor that probably just thinks that these girls are crazy. But, yeah, so I'd say it's the shared goals that's also one of the glues of this friendship. Like, we know that we're going in similar direction. So it's easier to sort of cultivate. So the people that are struggling with friendship, like I said, understand, first of all. So first, one thing AK said, you know, what are you, first of all, understand, who are you yourself, right? And do that self-assessment, be true to yourself. That's the only place that you can, that's the first place to begin. And then with that, you can attract the kind of people that you want to attract based on your own true self.
I think there's a reason why the Bible says, love your neighbor as yourself. And she just buttressed that point. You have to understand who you are. Accept yourself, then know that friendship is not about modification. Yeah. Friendship is different from followership. If you want to be a leader or a boss of people, then go and gather people and pay. You know, maybe you have a company or followership. But once you come to real friendship, you must learn to coexist. Human beings are not perfect. Yeah. You must give an allowance for that, and you must take time to build that bank of trust. Yeah. You keep depositing into it. And you must build that. It takes time. Don't rush it. Don't force it.
Don't force it.
More importantly, be a happy person. Be
By
what,
yourself.
By yourself. Be what you can attract.
Yeah.
Be sincere, be true, and it will come.
Damilola Owolabi is a life coach who believes that friendship can be great, but explains that humans need to be intentional about being the right kind of friend before seeking real friends.
Most of the people that I deal with have challenge with friends understanding them in their critical time and state. So when they come to me, we deal with the issue from the angle of, okay, before we start bringing your friend in, your family, can we deal with you first? What have you done to merit that friend? In our own or in his or her own time or downtime, what have you done to help him or her? Now, the painful part is if they have been loyal, if they have been good, if they have been supportive, and when it now gets to their time, they got stabbed at the back, got condemned and all of that, it can be more painful, and it adds more to the trauma they are going through as at that time, and it helps them, it costs their healing to elongate.
Good friendship embodies empathy, compassion and concern for other people. It requires time and work and could transcend race, culture and national boundaries. By valuing and celebrating friendship, we foster selflessness and gratitude, and these individuals share what friendship means to them.
It's a form of companionship, a union between two or more people, like do things together, play together, eat together.
Friendship is about sacrifice, it's about tolerance.
It's an affliction you have for one another.
Someone you can rely on, call upon, be dependable to, like someone that can be there for you.
Happy International Day of Friendship. Be kind to everyone you meet.
Happy International Day of Friendship.
Happy International Day of Friendship. Happy International Friendship Day.
Happy International Day of Friendship. Be kind, be true, and be you.
So what are the top decisions that the United States considers necessary that Nigeria must take? I like to think of my interactions as conversations, not interviews. And that's why I say asking questions is both an art and a science. Everyone says in Islam you are allowed to have 4 wives. Is it mandatory? The right question enables answers that educate, inform, clarify, and help you, the viewer, to better understand the issue before making up your mind.
Our goal is to reduce from 10 to 2 days the time it takes to register businesses in Nigeria.
Join me every week on this station, Plus TV Africa, and gain exclusive access to my conversations. I'm Angela Ajetumobi.
20-meter cliff, a couple of ropes, freezing cold water, and me trying to cope with all of that. I did make it down in the end, but this outing with a couple of guys really had me testing my limits. And that's precisely our topic this week on Made, leaving the comfort zone. I'm Chris Kober, welcome. We don't want to be bogged down with details, do we? It is the result that counts. Well, sometimes it's the details that unveil an inconvenient truth. Take meat production. We know that for us to be able to slap that steak on our grill, an animal needs to die. Often enough in anything but a gentle or respectful way. Our reporter Kai Steinecke, an avid meat lover, decided he wants to leave his comfort zone and does want to know how the sausage gets made, literally. A word of warning, the report contains scenes some viewers may find disturbing.
Hello. Hello, hello.
I am going to slaughter one of these animals. They belong to Wendelin Schmucke. He farms sheep the traditional way. His family has been doing this since 1750. His sheep are out to pasture for most of the year. But it's hard to find enough grazing land.
In der Regel brauchen die Schafe
The sheep
nachher
need
einen
about a
Hektar
hectare,
Fläche, den die
a hectare a day, that
bekommen.
is.
Dann brauchen die auch jeden Tag einen Hektar Fläche.
A hectare every day?
Ja, 10.000
Yes, a hectare for
Quadratmeter,
700
die
sheep.
700 Schafe.
So this whole field is only enough for today. When they've had their fill, the flock will go home to the farm.
I hope the ones that I'm gonna slaughter are going to be bigger.
Oh yes, this one is bigger. It's 6 months old and weighs about 40 kilos.
That's huge.
I had no idea how quickly they grow.
I really don't know if I can do this.
I'm grappling with the fact that we kill animals so we can eat meat, and that I'm going to kill this lamb. First, we have to take it to the slaughterhouse.
Yeah, you really can feel the 40 kilograms.
It's a 10-minute drive, nothing in comparison to the lengthy journeys to the slaughterhouse that livestock often face. Marco Kerr will be by my side throughout the process. He's been a butcher for more than 10 years, and he only slaughters what people bring him for their own consumption, like this lamb that I've bought.
Das ist das Schlachthaus hier und hier werden wir das gleich drin machen.
What was it like for you the first time?
Ja, das erste war.
You don't forget the first time. I had to leave the room. It was all a bit much.
Das war ein bisschen viel. Gar nicht so das
Not because of the blood, but the fact that an animal is dying.
Und das wird dir erst bewusst,
You don't really grasp that until you see it. And when it's done, you can't undo it.
Aber
But we'll manage.
wir schaffen das schon. Wir schaffen das.
Oh God.
Marco shows me how to use a bolt gun. It destroys the sheep's brain, and it won't feel anything afterwards.
Ein bisschen Gewicht und locker in der Hand halten.
Hold it loosely and then press once.
Einfach trauen.
That was it.
Oh!
Yeah.
That's like a real gun.
Yeah.
And now the lamb's head is in the firing line.
All is good, all is good. Oh my God.
Höchster Punkt.
Ja.
Verbindungslinie.
Highest point, draw a line. There.
Finger weg.
Take your fingers away.
Immer den Finger weg.
Ja.
So.
On the head and pull the trigger.
Ja.
Knife, slice it through, all the way.
Durchstechen, richtig. Durch.
And again.
Ich muss mal einmal. Oh God, Jesus.
That's a lot of blood. That's a lot of blood.
Das war's.
That was it. It's over.
Hat er's geschafft.
So, how was it?
It's all happening so fast. I think I'll need time to process that. I've killed an animal.
Super geschossen, wirklich.
Great shot, really.
Wirklich sehr gut.
But that was just the first step. We're still a long way from having any chops or sausages. First, cut off the head, then the legs and the pelt. That's easier than I'd expected.
Das bedeutet dann aber auch
This
so,
isn't mass
es ist ja keine
production.
Masse so, ne? Also dann es kann ja nicht jeder
Not
immer
everybody
dann
can
halt
get
so
a
einen
lamb like
Lamm
this.
haben, mehr oder weniger.
Das ist so. Das ist so.
That's
Aber
true.
das macht's auch wieder besonders.
But that's
Und
what
das
makes
ist auch
it
wieder das,
special.
da haben wir den
And it's what makes it
Nachhaltigkeitsaspekt einfach
sustainable.
mit drin. Die Leute
People approach the whole thing in a
denken
different
einfach
way,
anders über das
especially with an
Fleisch,
animal like
wenn sie
this.
es essen, gerade bei so einem Tier. Genau.
We still need to get rid of the guts.
Genau. Einmal über Nacht in die Kühlung, wenn's abtropfen.
Now it's left to hang overnight. That makes it easier to process.
I think what happened back in that slaughterhouse will forever be burned into my mind. The noises, the sounds, the smells, but it's the only way that sustainably eating meat is actually possible, because doing this in the masses of meat we eat today is absolutely impossible. But still, for me, I don't really know if I'm ever going to walk into a supermarket again and be like, yeah, I'm going to eat that meat.
The next morning, it's time to harvest the meat we've worked so hard for. Taking the carcass apart isn't any easier, it turns out.
And there goes the shoulder.
Yes!
About 20 kilograms of the lamb are lost in the process, mainly the pelt and the guts. That looks great.
Da haben wir es. Dann Bratwurst als erstes.
How about a sausage for starters?
Dann
I'm not going to lie, this tastes really, really good. And I don't feel guilty about it because the lamb had a good life and a good death. And I'm not turning vegetarian, but it's only for special occasions, really. When you slaughter animals like we used to do 100 or 150 years ago, and like we just did, you also need to eat meat like we used to 100 or 150 years ago. That means only a steak a week, and that's it.
Oh my, what a day for a reporter. Leaving your comfort zone doesn't always happen voluntarily. People losing their jobs because businesses are suffering under pandemic restrictions. Now, that's a real problem. But maybe this crisis can also offer opportunities. Entrepreneur Ernest Darko might have some advice for you, even if you're not into large-scale health systems development like he is.
The COVID pandemic has really turned the world upside down. So here are the 5 tips to boost your career in the context of a pandemic. It's really important to focus on things that you're passionate about. Even if in the overall sense of your career, it's hard to find, the thing to be passionate about. I grew up in a situation where healthcare was always poor, clinics were always overcrowded. Halfway through my medical career, I realized that if I really want to make a difference in these types of environments, I needed to be a doctor of systems, not just of people. Many years later, here I am basically running a company that is focused on helping countries fix their systems at large scale. If it's not easy to get out of bed to go to that job or to go do that particular thing I've chosen to do, then I know I'm probably doing the wrong thing. If in particular you're in a career that's very much dependent, for example, on seeing people, and we know that going into lockdown and isolation is the norm, it's definitely going to impact your career or your profession negatively. So do that assessment really quickly to understand whether it's going to diminish or create opportunities for you. If there is an opportunity, try and figure out how am I going to work myself into that opportunity. So if I can now innovate in order to now meet this new demand, yes, I cannot see people in person, but there's this huge demand now. How can I innovate basically to meet this new opportunity? So we developed a screening app, for example, that community workers who are going to do the door-to-door COVID screening could use to capture the screening and the result of the screening in real time. Look at tech enabling yourself, using technology to allow you to innovate, using technology to allow you to meet the new opportunities that are presented by COVID, as opposed to purely being a victim to what COVID has done. So technology can be a game changer in many cases. It allows you to scale yourself up. It allows you to be accessible by your clients in ways that probably might actually be better than pre-COVID. As we've seen with COVID, things keep changing, right? Everything from having first wave to second wave to learning new things about the disease that then changes the policy environment, that then changes the rules. You'll know you're adapting in the right way if you're maintaining your clients, if you're maintaining quality and you're maintaining satisfaction with what you're doing. I know it may sound like a bit of a luxury to be in a position where you can do all of these things because some people may not actually have these options. But to the extent that you can, I think it's important that you do so. And I've seen some amazing examples of people doing this and in fact, not only surviving the pandemic, but actually thriving in the context of all of the challenges that COVID-19 has brought.
Readjusting your career can be difficult, no doubt, particularly if your plan was to have one of the coolest jobs ever, flying a plane. But we know the pandemic has been an utter nightmare for the travel business. The global airline body IATA says air traffic this year is expected to be 66% lower than last. So it's been a huge mess for the sector up to this point, and even with bookings slowly recovering, German flagship carrier Lufthansa has suggested that would-be pilots in its prestigious Flight Academy might have to rethink their plans.
Flying free as a bird over majestic landscapes. It's an appealing prospect for many. The videos about Lufthansa's pilot training program in the United States are a favorite with Lukas Heim. The 22-year-old moved to Bremen a year ago with his girlfriend to start his training at the European Flight Academy, the Lufthansa Group's training school in Germany. Now they're packing up and leaving Bremen. In March, the course was suspended. 700 would-be pilots were left hanging. For Lukas, it's been a very trying time.
They just kept stalling and putting us off. First they said the course would start up again in May, then in September, then next January. Since it's also unclear, it's time for us to leave. We can't keep paying rent for this flat. We came to Bremen so that I could become a pilot and Svea could go to university. But our time here is now over.
After many months in a kind of suspended animation, would the training resume or wouldn't it, Lukas and Svea made the difficult decision to give up and go home.
We had a plan when we moved here. Lukas was going to complete his training. And now we're leaving again, and he hasn't completed it. It's like running in a marathon and turning back halfway and never reaching the finish line.
Lufthansa, Germany's biggest airline, was brought to its knees by the collapse in air travel caused by the pandemic. It was saved from bankruptcy by a €9 billion bailout. Half its fleet remains grounded. The head of Lufthansa Aviation Training, Stefan Kenan-Scheib, says the airline has 1,000 pilots more than it needs.
We tell our student pilots quite candidly that the prospects for becoming a pilot are very, very bad right now because of the COVID-19 pandemic and the financial situation of the Lufthansa Group. We're losing €500 million every month. It's our duty to be open to the students and tell it like it is.
Most aviation industry analysts say the demand for pilots after the pandemic is hardly likely to soar. They don't see air travel picking up significantly until 2025. Most of the youngsters who have had to halt their training need a job to get by. Caroline Bösner was in the United States when she heard the course had been suspended. Now she's back living with her parents in Leipzig and working at an Amazon logistics center.
It wasn't easy, but I had to take a pragmatic approach. I knew I couldn't just sit around at home. I had to do something. And it wouldn't be a bad thing to make some money. You don't earn anything as a student pilot. On the contrary, it's more like burning money.
Many student pilots now find themselves in a precarious financial situation. They are by far not the only group of people in need of work, as the pandemic and ensuing lockdown. Caroline Bösner says for her, working at Amazon is temporary. She's not given up her long-standing dream of becoming a pilot. She remains as committed as ever.
I absolutely still want to fly. I'm not going to give up on my dream. It's anchored within me and it's not going to go away. I flew all over Florida. It was fantastic. And then suddenly I was back in cold Germany. I can't imagine doing anything else. So I have to find a way to finish my training. If need be, without Lufthansa.
200 minimum.
The enthusiasm may be great, but facts on the ground are not encouraging. Lufthansa has recommended its students actually give up rather than wait for the course to restart. If they complete the programme, they're going to be charged €80,000, and they won't have the guarantee of a job, as used to be the case. Lukas's father, Christopher Heim, is appalled. He's been a pilot at Lufthansa for 32 years.
This sounds to me rather like coercion. If I agree to terminate the training contract, everything will be fine. If I don't and want to fulfill my dream, then a huge sum of money comes due. I don't like that. I think it's dishonorable.
It's quiet and empty at the European Flight Academy in Bremen. This is the first time Lukas Heim has been inside since March. He too remains determined to become a pilot, despite the difficult conditions prevailing right now. Though he says he doesn't yet know how he's going to do that.
What I would like is for them to say, when we restart pilot training, we'll take you guys first, or that they at least certify our test results.
But Lufthansa has not made any such commitment. Nor does CEO Carsten Spohr have any words of encouragement for the students. He's already indicated that Lufthansa will have no more work for tens of thousands of its employees.
As with all professions and at all German universities, there are no guarantees of jobs in the future. And that is the case here too. Aviation remains a fascinating industry for young people too. But I think we have to face reality. In the years ahead, there are going to be too many people for the jobs available. Anybody planning a career in aviation has to take this into account.
The pandemic could end the dreams of an entire generation of would-be pilots.
"2020 has brought dread, distress, and disappointment, sure, but there are exceptions. E-commerce has seen an unprecedented boom. And with people having second thoughts about standing in line at crowded malls, trade experts believe online shopping revenue in Germany will be up almost 20% this year. But my colleague Olaf Krieger feels Christmas is not about the presents. It's what we make.
Oh, how joyfully, oh, how merrily, Christmas comes with its grace divine.
Christmas comes with grace in this of all years? Really?
Krieger, is that you?
Erika!
What are you doing here?
How about a bit of Christmas in these troubled times?
Come on in, we can decorate and we can chat.
You have children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren. How many altogether?
I have 3 kids of my own, 2 girls and a boy, 5 grandchildren and 4 great-grandchildren.
What's your favorite Christmas memory?
My childhood, with my parents and grandparents and with my kids when they were little, in the Ore Mountains.
And who helped decorate?
Just me.
Alone?
Yes, I start putting up the decorations in early December, but I wait until the 23rd to get the tree ready. Not a day earlier.
No one helps?
I don't want any help.
How about the food?
Really?
Yes, absolutely.
Christmas Eve is lentils with sausages. The next day, potato salad and maybe roast goose with red cabbage and kale from this garden.
From your garden?
Yes. So tell me, Krieger, how is Christmas with your family? Do you spend Christmas at home or do you go somewhere?
I'm going to try to be with my mother, but it might not be possible. She's in a home, and I may not be allowed in. But we hope that whatever the conditions, we can celebrate Christmas and be together. We can make that happen somehow. I hope. But suppose we can't meet up the way we used to at Christmas.
Yeah, if my son comes, we'll sit together with him and my daughter-in-law and my grandchild. And for everyone else, we have the phone.
Our Christmas lights. Suddenly people are so important again. Forget about the presents. Christmas won't be cancelled. It'll just be different. Let's have more light.
Let's have more light. What a splendid idea. That's our show. Thanks for watching. See you back here next week.
It is engagement we need to have.
Those who suffer miscarriages are never taken into account.
Members of the National Assembly are also influence peddlers.
You are sitting on Nigerians' money.
From the Babin, I pay my rent. On the Babin, I send my children to school.
A consultative engagement.
No any tangible notification before they ban us.
It's one thing for people to be at your back and the heat of the moment, and another thing for them to still be with you when push comes to shove.
Everyone talks about getting their dream jobs, but what does it take to get that dream job? In a religious society like Nigeria, some people resort to prayer, but did you know that sometimes the only reason you're not getting the job isn't because you don't have the credentials? Many times about how well you can defend your credentials through your presentation and communication skills during the interview. According to the National Bureau of Statistics, the rate of unemployment in Nigeria rose to 33.3% in December 2020 from a 27.1% in 3 months. Interview phobia is a major issue that contributes to unemployment in the country. Some individuals are employable but don't know how to express themselves properly, present their resumes, and network effectively. An expert spoke to us about interview phobia and how it has increased the rate of unemployment within the country.
Okay, so I mentioned I struggled. I went to Lagos State University, public university. Nobody taught you any of these things. And so I thought that if I come to the interview space, I would do well because I know I'm good enough. But coming in, it was difficult. I got plenty of rejections, and I made up my mind that if you can get past this thing, you would help other people who are also like you. And so sitting down in that space, I also see people like me, and I feel for them.
According to Student Graduate Report, more than 50% of graduates in Nigeria disclose that communication skill is the least skill their academic education prepared them with.
Like we have a compulsory NYSC every year. I believe the government or the educational sector should do something like when they know somebody's in their final year, maybe they allow them go through a month or so, or they introduce a course and make it mandatory for them to be able to go out there and face the outside world when it comes to interviews, when it comes to networking and all of that. I've seen super amazing, intelligent people lost opportunities because they were not confident, and those who were not so smart but have built their confidence are able to get the job and get these networks and get these opportunities. Especially when you come from a Yoruba or Igbo family where you don't have to look at your dad in the eye. You get that kind of thing. So you have to learn to look at people in the eye when you talk to them. It makes them believe that you are not up to something. You're not hiding anything in your cupboard.
We're going to school or having to attend different schools, all right? They just teach us, we only have syllabus on what they've been doing so far in past years, and there's no trend of bringing in new things.
So the next time you complain about not getting a job, think about how well your CV is prepared. Assess your communication skills during the interview and think about how well you presented yourself.
"60 Minutes with Angela" starts right now.
So when you serve the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria as his special advisor on media and publicity for 8 years, that's two unbroken terms, I suppose it makes all the sense to write memoirs. And that's where my guest today comes in. He says, without documentation, revisionism wins because human beings have short memories. He also goes on to say that the reason he's written his memoirs is to help Nigerians know the true and real Muhammadu Buhari, as opposed to the conjuration we have had over decades. His book, Working with Buhari, Reflections of a Special Advisor from 2015 to 2023, was publicly presented on the 16th day of January 2024. And it was the first time the former president, Muhammadu Buhari, would make his way back to the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja, since he left office on the 29th of May, 2023. Well, Femi Adesina, the former special advisor to former President Muhammadu Buhari on media and publicity, joins me on the program today. Well, thank you for coming on 60 Minutes with me. It's been like 6-7 years of not really having these conversations.
Oh, that long?
But before your appointment as a special advisor, you wore many caps. You would be termed to have reached the height of your profession. You were the managing director of the Sun newspaper. You were also the president of the Nigerian Guild of Editors. That's top, in the hierarchy of journalism in Nigeria. And in spite of your initial misgiving, when you got that call from President Muhammadu Buhari, you served 2 terms as special advisor. Correct me if I'm wrong, you must be the first special advisor to do 8 years with the president since our return to democracy in 1999.
Yes, that would be quite right.
Good. Now, you've spoken about a certain myth about President Muhammadu Buhari, a narrative that his political enemies had sold and fed to the Nigerian public. What is this myth?
Over the years, you know that he first came as a military ruler.
Yes.
That's December 31, 1983 to August 27, 1985. And he ruled with an iron fist. That gave people the excuse to now say he was a dictator. When he came out in 2002 saying he had become a Democrat, they didn't believe him.
Yes.
They felt it could never happen. In fact, they felt he would be a worse dictator than he was as a military leader if he was ever elected. So there began systematic demarketing of the man Buhari. He's a dictator, he's a religious bigot, he's a Muslim zealot, he is a man who doesn't have a wide perspective of the country, he is too clannish, narrow,
Yeah.
and all that. All sorts of perspectives which were not correct. They succeeded in selling that to Nigerians in 2003, 2007, and 2011. So he didn't win the election in those years. But by 2015, Nigerians were not ready to buy those things again. Those arguments had become prosaic, jejune, and Nigerians just said, this is the man we want, and they voted him in. So a lot of people changed their minds about him, voted him, but there were some who remained in their entrenched positions. That was why, having then worked closely with him for 8 years and seen that he is none of those things they paint him to be, I just felt I would write a book to put things in their proper perspectives.
And the book was well received by him. I just wondered, when you showed him the manuscript, because I know after you left office, you disappeared for a few months to finish the book.
Yes.
And then you got back and you went straight to see him in Daura. Yes. What was his reaction to the book?
Yeah, when I gave him the manuscript, the first thing he did was to go to the contents page.
Yes.
And when he looked at the titles of each chapter, some he will read and laugh, and then some he will just smile and nod. At the end of the day, he said, Nigerians will love to read this book. Nigerians will love to read this book. He flipped through the pages. There were some areas I asked him, I mentioned this. Should I remove it? He said, leave it. It's part of our history. Leave it there. Now that the book is out, I see them playing up all those in the media and trying to make mischief with it. I just laughed. They didn't know that even the former president had known and approved those parts to be
Okay,
there.
so I was reading one of the comments on Twitter. Someone said in reaction to your book that, it looks like this Mr. Adeshino, he don't plan this book. He knew that he was going to write these memoirs from day one. Your power of recollection is what they couldn't get over. So I suppose my question is, when you get an appointment such as that, is that the first thing that comes to your mind? I've got to start preparing for my memoirs. Or when does the idea come in?
Not exactly. If you asked me along the line, are you going to write? I would say maybe yes, maybe no.
Yes.
I wasn't quite sure whether I would write or not. So it was not as if I went into government planning to write at the end of it all.
Yes.
I could have written and I may not have written. I just, sometime when we finished, decided that, okay, I will write. So it was not as if I went into government planning to write this. Let me tell you an encounter between myself and the then General Buhari on phone. The first time he called me was the build-up towards the 2007 election. I had written an article about him in the Sun newspapers. The following day, my phone just rang, and he said, this is Muhammadu Buhari. I said, which Buhari? He started laughing, and I just started laughing. I said, General! And then we started talking. He said, I read the article. He said, you must have the memory of an elephant. All those things you know there, how did you remember them? That was pre-2007. Okay. So most of the things in this book too, yes, some were jotted in the course of working in government, some were
retained.
Recalled. Yes, I retained and then recalled at the time I was writing.
So one of the more controversial topics that you touch upon in your book is that of Nnamdi Kanu, who is, by the way, still detained, been detained since June 2021. You alluded to the fact that if Nnamdi Kanu was not extradited to Nigeria, he would have been eliminated.
No. That was a twist of what I wrote. I read that twist,
yes,
which is not correct. What the president said when the high-level delegation from the southeast came to the president, pleading that he released Nnamdi Kanu to them. They pledged that he would be of good behavior. And the president said what they were asking him was very difficult. One, because it was already a judicial matter, and he never likes to interfere with the judiciary. Once something is before the courts, he wants the courts to adjudicate on it. And then secondly, he said to them, you asked me to release him unconditionally. He said, it's like a boy who stood outside and began to throw stones into his own house.
Yes.
Then why should he be released unconditionally? He said, we are a government. If we had wanted to kill Nnamdi Kanu, even abroad, we could have arranged it.
Yeah.
But we decided to bring him back home so that he can have his day in court and justify all the allegations he had leveled against the country. He said the country is a zoo. Let him say it before the court.
Yes.
So the president said, we did him a favor by bringing him home so that he can justify all the allegations he has leveled against Nigeria. There was no plan to assassinate him. And the president said, we could have if we wanted because we're a government. So, but that didn't come into our thoughts at all. We preferred that he be brought home so that he could justify all the
all what he had been saying.
Yeah.
One of the most interesting recollections for me in that is the Emilio Con episode. And the decision, as you put it, by the principal aides of former president to brief him when you were airborne. I think you were on a travel
from
with
Spain.
the president in Spain then. So you all decided that once you were airborne, you as his advisor would approach him so that, according to you guys, you didn't want him to get a varied and distorted version. Now, we all remember that speech of Emilio Con. What could a varied and distorted version look like that would be worse than the perception and implication that those words had already created, on that fateful day in Abeokuta? I'm trying to see why your team thought it was important to brief the president, and why you thought it was possible for a varied and distorted version to be given to the president.
Now, when something happens, look at the newspapers and the news media generally. They take it from different perspectives. Some on point, some off point. Look at stories that have been written from this book, for instance. A lot have been distorted.
Yes.
So that was why we felt the president was going to land in Nigeria. He will read the newspapers, and then we didn't want it to be a surprise to him when he saw all the headlines and the papers going in different directions. He will now be wondering what is the truth. That was why we held that meeting, that once we were airborne, I should approach him and brief him on all that had happened, which I did.
What was his reaction?
He's a man of few words, very few words. He listened to me patiently, and that's one of his strong points. He listens. Anybody talking to him, he listens patiently. And after it, he said, Asiwaju said all that?
I'm surprised.
He's surprised. Asiwaju said all that? And then he said, thank you for coming to brief me. That was it. And that was it. But later I learned that when he got to Asiwaju met him, and I think
the iron things out.
Yes, the iron things out.
Because I'm thinking, to many of us observers who were watching the events leading up to the election, that speech would be said to have been targeted at the former president. It looked like a resistance. Of course, some of the current president's supporters have always thought that President Buhari was lukewarm at best to President Tinubu's ambition. And so in saying, Emilio Con, it is my turn, no one can stop me. No matter what you all throw at me, this is my turn. Especially, if you recall, he used the words Olule. He tried the first time, Olule. Tried the second time, Olule. So everyone thought there's only one person who's tried to be president 3 times. And it's President
It was not in doubt that he was talking about President Buhari. It was not in doubt. But then you see that immediately after that speech openly in Abeokuta, there was a press statement from Bayo Onanuga, who was a spokesman to the presidential campaign then, putting things in proper perspective. It's also in my book. You said lukewarm. Lukewarm is not the word I'll use. Neutral is the one I prefer to use. If a sitting president is lukewarm towards you,
nothing will happen.
Nothing will happen. If you know the power that resides in the presidency, you will know that if a sitting president is lukewarm towards you or doesn't want you, nothing will happen in your favor.
Yes.
The president was just neutral, and he allowed things to play out. And
he wanted a level playing field,
which he ensured
with all the candidates. Okay, so till today, some of Asiwaju's supporters still have it in their minds that President Buhari didn't want Tinubu as his successor.
They have a right to their opinion. But recall that even against the electoral law, when the president voted in Daura, he displayed his ballot, showing that he voted APC. So, How else will a man prove that he wanted somebody as his successor than that? Yes.
Okay, but you know, there's no doubt that the APC seems to have many blocks, and that's understandable. The four parties came together to form that party. Did you, as the head of the Buhari media team, feel at some point that the campaign of Asiwaju was distancing itself from the achievements of the administration that you served? In the run-up to the campaign, when the campaign first started, it looked as if they were going to be campaigning on the achievements of then Governor Bola Ahmed Tinubu as Governor of Lagos, rather than riding on the many achievements of Buhari in the last 8 years, which were the pioneer years of the APC at the presidency.
I didn't get that feeling. Maybe if that perception is there, some people try to play it up, but that is not the overriding perception, because President Buhari was with him in many of his campaign stops.
Yes.
If he didn't want him, one, he would not be there. If not that the Buhari achievements could be played up, he would not be there. Remember, I think the campaign flagged off in Jos. Remember that everyone, candidate Tinubu, could not speak. It was just saying, Buhari, 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 when he saw the overwhelming crowd. Without Buhari joining him in that campaign, I was in most of them, it wouldn't have been the same as what we saw. Yes. Because Buhari still, even after 8 years, he still had that cult-like following. Even today, when I go to Daura and he goes out, I go out with him, if you see how people still respond, it's simply wonderful. So I don't have that impression that the Tinubu campaign wanted to distance itself from the achievements of President Buhari. And many times, President Tinubu has also said that Buhari was like their precursor. And when they met at this book launch, you heard what he said.
In fact, people were surprised that the president turned up at your book launch. Everyone thought, we will see if Tinubu really turns up.
He gave his word.
And he did?
Yes, because I sent him an invitation, and the feedback I got was that he said, if you spend me additional, I'll come. He is a good person. And since President Buhari is in town, I must be there as a sitting president. And he was true to his word.
Well, we'll take a break now. Join us again after the break. All right, welcome back, and I still want to stay on this issue of the alleged friction between former president and, one of the things that the current president's supporters hold on to is that currency change, the Naira redesign. At the time it happened, the general word on the street was that a lot of politicians had hoarded Naira notes, and President Buhari had been briefed about that hoarding, and that in order to have clean elections, there was a decision taken to change the currency so that it would make it difficult for politicians to buy the votes from the electorate. What would be your reaction to Tinubu supporters who think that that singular policy was directed at them so that it would make it difficult for them to get people to vote for the APC?
Why would it be difficult for the APC and not for other parties? If it affected APC, it must affect PDP. It must affect Labour. It must affect all the other parties. the one thing leaders must know is that they need to be careful of what their supporters say. They need to discern carefully, otherwise they will cause problem between them and other leaders. So, if the Naira redesign policy was to give us cleaner elections, was it only one person that was going to the election? Was it only one party that was going to the election? So if it affected one party, it must affect all the parties. And no doubt, President Buhari still keeps saying that, do you know that in that election, 9 governors who wanted to go to the Senate couldn't win their elections? Do you see governors ever failing elections? The retirement home. Well, we failed during that election. So we had cleaner election. It was not targeted at any single politician or any party, but we had cleaner election. And do you also recall that even during that time, kidnapping stopped? Because if you kidnap anybody and you ask for ransom, there was no cash to bring. I remember that in Kano, was it the APC secretary that was kidnapped? Day 1, day 2, day 3? Nothing. Nobody answered their call, nobody brought a dime. When the captors were tired, they just slapped the man 3 times and pushed him out. Bad market. Because there was nobody answering them because there was no money to bring.
Was the president fully briefed? Because there's still this brouhaha in the polity about whether or not the president was properly briefed, whether or not the then CBN governor had the capacity to push forward this policy. Were we prepared for that Naira redesign?
Yes, I was privy to most of the things that happened as build-up to that redesign. How many times Godwin Emefiele came to meet with the president, meetings they held, which I sat in, and I had to issue statements and all that. So I guess the policy was properly enunciated. The actual implementation may not have been as seamless as it should be, but the enunciation was good, and the president was convinced that it was the way to go. If you read this book, he spoke about it.
Are any of you who are the members of the media team of Buhari surprised that sometimes when you read the papers or you listen to current members of this administration, it would seem that the government of Buhari is being vilified by members of the same party? I still remember the current National Security Advisor, Nuhu Ribadu, talking about how this administration inherited almost nothing in terms of kind of economy, and some of them saying things like, oh, the country was run aground for the last 8 years by President Muhammad Buhari. I mean, the shocking thing for many people is that both Buhari and Tinubu are from the same party. And we're surprised that from the same party would come such harsh words about the former president.
Well, I ascribe it to limited knowledge. If you have limited knowledge about something, what should you do? Try to understand it. Try to read up, try to get information. But if you begin to speak without having done that, your shallowness will come out. So it was limited knowledge that made some people say what they said. And do you know the response of President Buhari to us privately? Said, leave them. Everything is documented. That's what he said. Everything is documented.
So he's not worried, he's not fearful if there's a probe?
Not at all. During this launch, he was talking about the importance of documentation. That was what he meant. He said nothing was done under the veil of secrecy under his administration, and everything is on record. So those who said what they said, if they had sought to look at the records, they would have been better educated, and so would not have said what they said.
Did the president have a preferred successor in that last election?
He was neutral. If you had a preferred successor, the power that resides in the office of the president is so enormous, nothing will have stopped that person.
From emerging.
Nothing will have stopped.
So when the former Senate president was pushed forward and it was implied that it was President Buhari's choice. That wasn't true
There
at
was
all.
there was a statement that came saying the president hadn't endorsed anybody.
He didn't endorse his vice president either.
Not anybody. He just said, please go to the primaries, let the best person win. Whoever emerges.
And he received many visits from everyone who was aspiring.
Oh yes, that's the right thing to do. He was a father of the country. So a good father should create a level playing field and bless anybody aspiring.
But you know that all those who were coming to tell him were obviously coming to tell him because, they thought...
He will endorse them.
Yes.
Well, maybe they didn't know President Buhari enough. Those of us that know him know that he's such a fair-minded person. If he does something and he thinks he has wronged another person in that process, no, he would rather not do it. He's a person who is always mindful of the last day when Allah will ask him questions and judge him. Yeah. This is what he told me. You get to see it in that book later. When there was talk about lopsided appointments in the country, particularly in the area of security, the day he called me to announce Lawal Daura as DGDSS, he had removed Ita Ekpeyon from South-South. So I said, Mr. President, tongues are wagging that you are appointing too many people from the north. You have removed a man from South-South. Why not replace him with another person from the South-South? He now told me that when he's going to fill positions like that, a committee is set up, a search team is set up, and they work. At the end of the day, they come with 3 recommendations. 1, 2, 3. Yeah. With number 1 being the best, number 2 second best, number 3 also appointable. Most times, 90, 95 out of 100 in 8 years, President Buhari will always approve number 1. And what he told me that day was, if somebody has come first in that exercise, and because of his religion, or because of his ethnicity, or because of language, or because of anything, and not bypassing, appoint another person, Allah will judge me on the day of judgment.
So it didn't matter what part of the country you were from, you were the next in line.
If you were the best in the exercise, it didn't matter where you came from. And like I said in the book, that's the bit ahead of its time in Nigeria. Because Nigeria not only would look at everything from the area of where you hail from, they will look at it from religion. So President Buhari didn't countenance all that. He just went for the best in any exercise.
Let me bring you back now to your relationship with the late Chief of Staff, Abba Kyari. I was shocked to read that there was a fractured relationship between yourself and him. Did he perhaps favor someone else for your post?
Fractured will not be my word. Frosty will not be my word. I'll just say not convivial. We didn't have that kind of relationship that you would think a special advisor will. His successor, Professor Ibrahim Gambari, I had a better relationship with him. Yes. Because the day he resumed, he said, Femi, just take me as a big uncle. Yes. And anything I needed to discuss, I went straight to him. The late Abba Kyari didn't have that kind of disposition. He was a bit aloof. And you are the way you are. You can't help it. Yes. If that was the way he was made, no problem. What you probably have read about my relationship from him were the excerpts people took from that book, which was not complete. For you to get a complete picture of my relationship with him, read the entire chapter, A Tale of Two Chiefs of Staff. When you read it, everything will fall into place. The video just took what will sound good, what the readers will like, and what will reverberate and will latch on. Will latch on to. If you read the entire story of my relationship with him, how I mourned him when he passed on.
I know.
I genuinely felt it when he passed on, because I would have wanted him to finish with the administration and. Because
it got me thinking that were you an outsider when Buhari brought you in? I think if not the first
appointment, the first 2-3 appointments that President Buhari made.
Yes.
And a lot of people were shocked. I wasn't, but we all knew your relationship with the then General Buhari.
Yes.
You know, so I thought, okay, was it that he considered you to be an outsider brought in?
I wouldn't think so, because he just needed to know what was the background between me and General Buhari, who later became President Buhari, and then he wouldn't consider me an outsider. As far back as 2013, when my mother died, President Buhari came to attend the commendation service we did for her in Lagos here, a Christian service, and he stayed all through. So I was still active in the media during the campaign, but I was giving support from the outside. And that was what I thought I would give even to the administration, support from outside.
Yeah.
But eventually when I was invited to come, it took me a while to decide to go. You will see that the very day I had to resign my appointment as Son MD and President Guild of Editors, I began to cry, because I didn't want to leave uncertainty for uncertainty. I had never worked in government before. I didn't know how it would be, and but because it was President Buhari, that was why I went.
You made a point that you never worked in government before. Is it that the opportunity never came, you didn't actively seek it, or you just were not interested?
I was not interested. And I remember that one of my active readers in the media, Jafet is his name, he sought me out one day, came to the Sun, and said, I want to meet the person who writes this thing week after week. So he came and we got talking. And then he asked me, would you ever serve in government? I said, no. Straight, I said, no. Then I thought about it again and I modified my position. I said, well, I can serve in the government headed by Muhammadu Buhari. That was what I told him. That was my conviction then. Any other person apart from Muhammadu Buhari, I wouldn't have taken.
So now, if you're called upon to serve, like in your home state or Osun State, for instance, would you be open to that?
After 8 years, you get tired, don't you? After 8 years, I felt I had done my bit. Out of 200 million Nigerians, and served for 8 years, more than my fair share.
And it wasn't called a thankless job.
Well, they call it so, for me, I wouldn't call it so. You remember, if you read that book, you will see the encounter between me and the Sultan of Sokoto. He had known me before I took on the assignment. He called me Kuli Kuli after my email address. So, the very week I was appointed, he came to the villa, he saw me, he said, Kuli Kuli, this job you have come to do, it's a thankless job. He said, with your predecessors, it has been a thankless job. He said, but with you, it shall not be so. And I said, amen to it. So today, I don't see it as a thankless job. It was a tough job, no doubt, but not thankless.
I remember when you were appointed and you coined that phrase, the wailing wailers. You know, your strict loyalty to President Muhammadu Buhari. I've always wanted to know your reaction to critics who said that statement, wailing wailers, was unbecoming of a presidential spokesperson.
There's a perspective. Perspectives are free. They had the right to it. But you know, the truth about the wailing wailers was that it was directed at the PDP and Olisa Metu, their spokesman.
Yes.
In the first few months in office, you find that President Buhari could not do anything right. Anything he did, Olisa Metu will issue a statement. If it rained heavily, he will issue a statement. If it didn't rain at all, it was Buhari's fault. If he saw a wall gecko in his house, Buhari turned to that wall gecko. And all that. One day I now said, what is this? I now did a tweet that these people, they are forgetting that they have lost power. And they will be out of power for a long time. Wailing wailers. That was my tweet. Now, it was directed at Olisa Metu and his party. But anti-Buhari elements online say, oh, he's abusing us, he has called us wailing wailers. So they appropriated that tag to themselves. If they decided to appropriate it, I left them. They were welcome to take it.
Welcome back to my concluding moments now with former special advisor to former President Muhammadu Buhari, Femi Adesina. All right, so two major issues that made Buhari trend. I mean, very, very major issues. One, Jubril al-Sudan, and of course his purported wedding to the Humanitarian Affairs Minister, Sifia Omar. I mean, they even printed invitations. We heard Professor Shimbaji when he gave that anecdote at the launch saying, you know, he wanted to sue people who he felt had defamed him, and the president said, at least they didn't print Ivy for you. People were even calling Color. Color will not move. So I want to get a feeling of what happens in the villa when issues like this come up. Give us a real look into how the president reacts to those sort of stories in conversations with you. Because I know you've told me that he reads the papers voraciously and you brief him every morning on, you know, issues that you
I
think
tell him he wants to see.
he wants to know what is going on. So what was his reaction to that Jubril al-Sudan first?
Well, the Jubril of Sudan was foolishness. It was completely obtuse. He left the country in January on a medical trip. He came back in March, went again in April, and came back finally in August. August 19 to be precise. The day he arrived, I remember that the then Chief of Defense Staff, General Gabriel Olonishaki, was giving out his daughter in wedding. So I went to attend that wedding, and naturally I was in Agbada and cap. Before I left for church, I had got a message that he would be arriving that day, that I should inform Nigerians. So I issued a statement. From the church, we went to the reception. I left the reception about 3 o'clock.
Yes.
The president was to land at 4, and I didn't feel I should go back home to change before going to the airport. So I went to the airport. If you still recall the tape of that day, you will see that when he shook me, we were laughing. And what did he say when he shook my hand? He said, Adesina, this is the best I've seen you dressed. So you made it complete today. Agbada, we clapped to him and we laughed. Now the question is, if he was Jubril, will he even recognize me? Will he know I'm Adesina? Will he know how I normally dress?
Yes.
So that just knocked out the story of Jubril for me.
Yes.
Anybody that said it, I knew was being foolish. How do you think the man that was in the villa was another person and his wife will not know? He says I saw him every day.
How did that story start, and how did it get entrenched to the point that people believed?
And you know it came from Nnamdi Kanu.
Right.
Yes, he was the one that started it.
That the Reed Wari is there.
Yes, and you know that Nnamdi Kanu has a large following. Everything he says to some people is the gospel truth. So they received it, they believed it, but those of us that know. And you know, before the president himself left government, he responded to it.
Yes.
He said it was absolute foolishness, which I believe it is.
Did he laugh about it? I mean, at some point it must have been funny to him.
No, he just dismissed it.
Okay.
He just dismissed it. Just like one time there was this thing in the social media about his daughter getting married on a certain day at a certain venue.
Yes.
It was so widespread. And I went to his office and said, oh, so I see that a wedding is coming up in the family. He said, where did you get that? I said, social media. He said, don't mind those nuisance.
There was no wedding?
No, not at that time. Yet, they had appointed a venue, named one of his daughters, and everything was false.
The other funny one was his purported wedding and people turning up at the Central Mosque on Friday for prayers. And everyone assuming that the wedding was going to hold. And they all turned up.
Yes.
Even though they were not directly told by the president that I will be getting married.
That shows you how fertile the imagination of some mischief makers can be. When the president was ill and was in London, and after he had come round and he was recovering, I remember he placed a call to me one Saturday. And he said, Additional, thank you for holding out against the mischief makers. He said, I see everything you do. I watch. He knows that there are plenty of mischief makers in the country. That purported wedding was a product of mischief makers. Recall that the DSS arrested one man whom they paraded,
yes,
who did a tape purporting that the president was going to marry the finance minister.
Yes,
Zainab. So that's just part of it. And then they say that of the humanitarian affairs minister too. Just concoction.
Those were funny times. Did the former president have any regrets?
I have attempted to answer this question before, and the media twisted it. That I said he regrets so many things.
Yes.
And my answer was that there is no human being who does everything right all the time. You can't claim that everything you do 100% all the time. No, there will be some shortcomings with the benefit of hindsight. But regret is a very strong word. What I would say is that President Buhari did what he considered was good for Nigeria at any given time. With the benefit of hindsight, he may feel, oh, maybe this one I should have done this way or this way or this way. But regret would be a very strong word. Why did he apologize for some things? Because maybe he felt it rubbed some people down the wrong way. So, regret would not be the word, but he just felt maybe this could have been done better. His guiding principle was to do the best thing for all Nigerians at all times, to the best of his ability.
One of the things that Nigerians are disappointed about is that they thought in President Buhari coming in as a former general that the issue of insecurity would have been tackled more than we saw. Yes, when he came in, Boko Haram was controlling some areas and some local governments in the northeast and all that, but we subsequently saw many incidents, the Buniyadi incident, we saw the Chibok girls.
Buniyadi was before him. Chibok was not even under him.
It was under Jonathan.
It was under Jonathan, and he recovered a large number of the Chibok girls. Dapchi was under him, and within that week, majority of the girls were recovered except about 3 or 5, including Leah Sharibu.
In terms of that insecurity, could he have done more?
He did his best. What I'd like you to recall is that before Buhari came, every day in this country, bombs went off 5, 6, 7 places. Daily. In fact, we, our friends of Ruben Abati, used to even jest that Ruben already had a template for his statements on bombing. He just would change the time and the date. Because there could be 7 bomb blasts in one day.
Yes.
He would just fit in the venue and the time to differentiate it from the last one he issued. But by the time Buhari left, did you still hear bombs? No, you didn't hear bombs. Schools were being bombed, markets were being bombed, motor parks were being bombed, lives were lost in hundreds. He had made tremendous progress on the security front. It was not fully accomplished,
yes,
but a lot had been achieved. Those who live in the Northeast will say it better. I remember that in his last year in office, February of 2023, we went to Yobe. We were in the palace of the Emir, who told us that previous years nobody could stay in that palace. Everybody had evacuated, including himself, the Emir. He said they put $1 billion in that palace. Nobody but you were to go in there to say you want to take that money. Because Boko Haram was sitting there. But by that time, the emirs had returned to their palaces. Orientation camps for NYSC that had been shut down had resumed. Roads that were impassable had resumed. President Buhari did a lot in terms of combating insecurity. It was not fully accomplished, but that is why governance is a continuum.
Yes.
Wherever one government stops, another one continues.
No government can do everything.
I've never seen that government.
Chapter 21 of your book, you talk about the official trips. Total trips made by President Buhari were 94, 19 trips in 2016, 2023 and 2021, 5 trips each. 2020, 2 trips. I wondered why you only did 2 trips in 2020.
2020, no, it couldn't have been 2 trips. The only year that the trips were limited was 2017, the year when he had his medical challenge. Yes. And then 2020 was the COVID lockdown, that year too.
Yes, that's why.
Yes.
That's why.
You know, COVID came December 2019, 2020 was the year of lockdown. From January to August, September, there was nothing happening internationally. Even the UN General Assembly that we used to attend every September was done virtually. So the world was locked down.
What do you say to critics who say, well, 94 trips in 8 years, but nothing to show for it?
Well, it's a language they like, the critics. Nothing to show for it. They will see Second Niger Bridge, still nothing to show for it. They will see Lagos-Ibadan Expressway, nothing to show for it. They never see anything. They will see local Oweto Bridge, nothing to show for it. That's their language.
What do you consider to be President Buhari's legacy projects? The projects that will stand him out in years to come?
Infrastructure first. Do you know that Bonny never had a road? The Bodo-Bonny Bridge is on as we speak. In the first time in the history of Nigeria, Bonny will be linked by road, and history will have it that it was under President Buhari. Second Niger Bridge, President Buhari. Local Oweto Bridge that links North Central has cut travel time by about 3 hours. It was under President Buhari. Lagos-Ibadan Expressway, since it was made in 1978, had never been done all over again. Now it is there. I remember reading a tweet by Dele Momodu, who is one of the Buhari critics. Yes. He said he left Osogbo and he was surprised to find himself in Lagos in about 2 hours. That was the same journey that would take you 6 hours before Buhari. Because Lagos-Ibadan Expressway, you can do it in 1 hour. So those are things to remember President Buhari for. And then that's in the area of infrastructure. There are many others. But for me, one very important thing that Nigeria should never forget is that the economy was diversified. Our economy had been mainly monoproduct, oil. All governments before Buhari had paid lip service to diversifying the economy. They never got it done. But under Buhari, oil that used to account for about 90% of GDP began to account for just 9%. Because Agric had taken the large chunk, ICT had taken another large chunk. Oil, there was a year oil accounted for just 9% of the GDP. So, if Buhari hadn't come and placed emphasis on agriculture that way, you know what would have happened? Particularly during the lockdown, the whole world was shut down. If you wanted to import food, nobody would sell to you because they needed the food in their own countries too. And cash was not available.
There was no movement.
No movement. Exactly. From Thailand, how would you move it? If he hadn't placed the emphasis on diversifying the economy through agriculture, how would Nigerians have survived? There would have been riots everywhere. In Venezuela, an oil-producing country like Nigeria, they were crossing the border to look for food because oil was the only thing they had. But because Nigeria had diversified the economy, we had rice, we had beans, we had maize, all the grains we were not importing again. So I think that will stand Buhari's regime in good stead, that really Nigerian economy became diversified and oil was no longer the mainstay of the economy under Buhari.
And what would you say to those who say that he shouldn't claim the second Niger Bridge as his achievement because it wasn't started by him?
Oh, really?
It was started by former President Goodluck Jonathan.
From the ask Minister Fashola, he will tell you how that project began from scratch and how it ended. Buhari is not tussling with anybody. Do you know that a lot of projects that were started by his predecessors, he completed them? That shows you that...
Is there anything wrong with completing projects?
Exactly. You know, PDP was, I don't want to say foolish, unsmart. PDP was unsmart enough to say, it is our project that is completing. Is there anything wrong with that? Is that not why governance is a continuum? But second Niger Bridge from scratch was a Buhari project. Minister Fashola told me, and I recall he told you in a documentary you did, that when he was appointed, President Buhari called him to the office and said, there are 3 or 4 projects I want you to do for me. 1, Second Niger Bridge. 2, Lagos-Ibadan Expressway. 3, Enugu-Onitsha Expressway, and 4, Abuja-Zaria Kaduna Kano Road. He said, do me those 4 projects, and you can do whatever you like after that. That's President Buhari for you.
Well, you talked about Dr. Reuben Abati earlier on, and I remember when his term was over as special advisor, he had written this article when he said, when the phone stops ringing. So I wanted to ask you, now that you've left office as special advisor, has your phone stopped ringing?
There's no difference. No difference between how I received calls when in office and how I receive now. In fact, when my phones begin to ring back to back, my wife will say, don't they know you are no longer in government? There's no difference, really. Because before I went into government, my phones were very busy. In government, very busy. Out of government, still very busy.
All right, so on a final note, I want to take you back to November 2015. You were coming on a trip from Malta.
Apartments. At the tail of the plane, you had the security people and some media people, they sit there. In the midsection, you had the senior aides there. I usually also would sit there. The president had his own cabin, but to keep the president company, called wind shear, when the direction of the wind suddenly changes. And that was how it happened. We'll fly according to the direction of the wind. So when that direction changes, it swings the plane. Yes. The plane almost turned back to face where it was coming. It was really a tough one. But we thank God that the pilots were experienced.
That was scary.
It was. But President said to say, what kind of landing is this?
I mean, imagine if you are the pilot or the president, you don't really want anything.
No, that's why it must be the best set of.
Are there Nigerian pilots flying?
They are all Nigerians. Most of them are from the Air Force. We have a sprinkle of some others who are civilians, but most of them are from the Air Force. I want to tell you that it's a big relief that we finished the assignment, we finished it well, we finished it in one piece. We finished it with our names intact. It is good.
And the FCC is not coming out. No.